Pro Cannabis Media and PCM TV programming is supported by Revolutionary Clinics in Massachusetts, the #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 accounting solution for the cannabis industry. And by TCP's Style Lighting Grow Kit, all you need to grow.
Welcome back to the Green Rush. Green Rush is a 2-hour weekly live cannabis business talk show. We're produced by Pro Cannabis Media every Friday from 4 to 6 Eastern. The show discusses new issues in the cannabis market and each week conducts a deep dive into specific topics in the industry. This week, we're talking about cannabis trade shows and events. We're going to talk to Jess Tyler. She's a senior VP of events and sales at MJBiz and MJBizCon. And of course, we got Christopher Smith, publisher and host of the American Cannabis Report. Christopher, thanks for being back with us.
Great to see you guys. How are you today?
Good. Jess, thank you for being with us as well. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty well. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jess, what do you got going on with the events these days? You're all things events, right?
All things events. So MJBizCon and all of the events we do throughout the year. That's my group. And we are rocking and rolling for November. This year's MJBizCon will be back at the Las Vegas Convention Center, November 15th to the 18th. And couldn't be happier. You know, we're coming out almost post-pandemic, looking like things are a little bit more normal this year, and just can't wait to have everybody back together.
It's a huge event. So first time I went there was 2016. It was at the Rio. It was large, but I couldn't remember which room I went into. It was like 4 different rooms, and then you go in and some of them look the same. Now it's in a convention center. It takes about 15 minutes just to walk the perimeter. There's 1,000 booths, 30,000 people. So this is something that takes a long time to produce and to showcase, right? It's not just something that happens really quick. This is the world's largest industry event. Am I right?
It is. Yep.
So the first day on the 15th, is that the investor conference? Is that specific to kind of a niche group where you can listen to what's going on for lending, investing, finance? Is that what that day is about?
Yeah, so November 15th is actually our pre-show forums day. So we have a few things going on, including the MJBiz Finance Forum, which is exactly what you just mentioned. We also have our Hemp and CBD Forum, our Science Symposium, and last but not least, we're launching a new Marketing and Branding Forum this year. So lots of deep dive workshops happen on Tuesday, with the main show floor and kind of all the craziness really picking up on Wednesday.
What role did you have during the pandemic for the online forum? And how did that go? There's a lot of folks that were really eager to get back in person. I'm not sure if it worked out numbers wise, with online, but walk us through that whole process during the pandemic.
Man, that was a crazy time. I feel like that was, 10 years was, 1 year there. But during 2020, obviously we were in a position where the convention center, by local government was closed. So we could not hold our event. And so we switched to an online model. And honestly, we did get pretty good feedback. We had some good engagement. We had sessions, and speakers from all over the world participating in that, lots of networking. And then we had online marketplace. So not quite your 3D avatar virtual event world, but more of what we would call like an Amazon experience, where you could shop and learn more about our exhibitors. So I would say overall, like it was definitely a nice stopgap. It helped keep the community together, keep things, discussions moving when we couldn't be physically. But in 21, we were fortunate enough to be able to be back in person last October. And we just added a digital component to that event. So you could either attend in person, which most people did. But, we still were dealing with travel restrictions last October. And it was a great option we had live stream content and some even pre-show forums that were done solely online.
Actually, so I mentioned on the 15th, that was like the first day, but don't you have something before? Isn't there a thing for like groups, like nonprofits or whatever that can, you can host that? What's that all about? What's that called?
So that's the Associations Day program. That is also on the 15th. It runs all day. So we invite many different associations, both national and state, local associations, to come in, and it's free, open to anyone who's attending MJBizzCon, just to get to see what these associations, what great work they're doing, see how you can get involved. But that will run all afternoon on Tuesday the 15th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was there a couple of years ago for the Cannabis Alliance, talking about cannabis cafes and what we need to do to move forward and push that bill. And I've also seen Podcast Row, where you're able to produce. It's very loud, obviously, as you can imagine. So you guys are providing a booth or space for podcasters, anybody who wants to rent that space. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep. If you have a podcast and you'd like to record live from the show, just, reach out, let us know. We can help arrange that for you.
Mm-hmm. The reason I kind of like going to the event every year is to basically get a gauge of where the industry is going. There's a lot of regional events that people really enjoy, but I think as a national or even global event, this is the one you kind of want to go and set 4 to 6 hours to try and see every booth if you can, to get a gauge on where the industry is at, or where it was, or where it's going. Because the people that are there are kind of giving you, I guess, an idea or foresight into the industry. There's still a lot of LEDs and dirt and traditional companies, but the ones that kind of give you that insight as to where the industry is going, they're there as well. So I've seen a lot of really interesting stuff. Christopher, have you gone? Have you had a chance to check out MJBizzCon?
Absolutely. I think as far as I've known, ever since I've been involved in the industry, it's sort of the one industry event that people pick first, and then when they're doing their yearly planning, they pick, BizzCon is a absolutely, and then all the rest of them are optional after that. So that's kind of where it's BizzCon, and then kind of everywhere else. I think that one of the great things too is that everyone comes to it. So if you have clients or people, partners that you're working with in any part of the country or the world, really, they're likely to be there anyway. So it's a really great, convenient, efficient way to get together. You see people you haven't seen for a while, you see old friends, and it's a great environment, really great environment. Fantastic.
I can't tell you how much that fills my soul to hear you say that, but we do look at it as it's a big responsibility. We're just here trying to, make connections for people, give them that forum to, grow their businesses. And so everything we do and everything new that we launch every year is trying to keep up with that and listening to feedback that we get, so that it continues to be useful for everybody to be there. So, but I'm glad to hear that you find it beneficial. That's awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I'm very curious, Jess, if you don't mind, I ask. So you talked about the marketing day, let's say, or whatever, on that first day, and that's a new entry or a new thing that you're doing. So I'm a marketing consultant, so I'm very interested in this kind of thing, and people in my industry are going to wonder, how do I get involved? Are there sort of breakout sessions like there are in the regular conference? And if so, what kind of topics are you looking for people to cover? What are the, perhaps maybe even what are some of the hot topics that are coming up?
Yeah, this came from just tons of feedback that we're getting. And it's a really interesting thing, a little anecdote before I get into that. But a couple of years ago, we had our first marketing and branding session. I would say this was probably 2018. And I have to say, the attendance was pretty light in the room. And then we did it in 19 and it was packed. 21 did it again, and we did multiple sessions, all standing room only. So you can see the shift that's happening in the industry. We're now cannabis leaders, we need to focus on what is our brand? How are we positioning in the market? And then the next step of that is, how am I going to do that when I am, so hamstrung by all of these regulations? So what we're trying to do is put together a full day program. So it's, we're working out the exact details right now, and our call for speakers is currently open. So if anybody's interested, but what we're trying to do is really create that, what things should you be thinking about as you're building your brand? How are you managing your brand? And then how are you amplifying your brand? How are you marketing and advertising? So I think it's going to be a really great program. You should definitely check it out.
Oh, I will. Don't you worry. I will be there.
What's going to be some of the themes coming up? It's 3 days, right? So there's several opportunities people can come in, and there's actually a lot of people who don't even come in. They use this as an opportunity to come in from all over the country, all over the world, And there's a lot of people out front, probably a couple hundred people that just congregate right out in front, as well as just in their suites and make appointments all the time. But for those who are able to make it into the seminars and listen, what are going to be some of the themes during that 3-day conference?
Gosh, yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot for sure. I would say the big things front of mind are, how are we preparing for some form of legalization? We're still seeing, a lot of different states will have initiatives on their ballots this year. So we're a week or two after the election. It's going to be a hot and heavy topic for sure that's going to run throughout the event. As we were mentioning before, marketing and branding and really building your brand. I see that being huge. Supply chain issues. We are starting to hear some of that from some of our close, friends in the industry that this is affecting people. So how are we, coming out of the pandemic? For some folks, it's you've had a massively successful couple of years, with being deemed an essential business. And for others, now all of a sudden we're having these supply chain shortages and it's definitely impacting your business. So what are you going to be doing? How are you going to navigate that? Those are just a few of the things. I think innovation will continue. That's something that is a central theme throughout. What's the new next thing on the horizon? For example, we will be covering psychedelics. I do know that that's, a topic that a lot of cannabis entrepreneurs are really interested in getting into. So we will be having some things on that too.
Interesting. Anything with the after parties? And I noticed last year, I don't think there was an official after party for MJBiz. A little too early, maybe with the pandemic or whatnot. There is some push for consumption lounges in Vegas, in Nevada. Do you foresee having an after party that's sponsored with a consumption lounge?
That is a great question. We've been talking to a lot of folks on the ground in Clark County about how this consumption lounges are going to roll out and how we can help support them and bring it in as part of the conference. So there'll be more to come on that. I know that committee is meeting again in June in Clark County, so we'll probably hear more over the summer. But that's currently something that is front of mind, but not officially in stone yet.
Right. You got to have some regulatory hurdles on that.
Yeah.
She said stone, dude. I heard just recently, or just even it may have been this morning or yesterday, came out a different conference has offered. It may be a medical conference, but the news bit was that they were going to allow consumption for patients. And that was a very hot topic. So, I mean, that's a whole different sort of category of people, not just people who just kind of want to get high, but people who need it for whatever their condition are. So perhaps that's a way to go about this.
Yeah. So, there's the other piece of this, which we have great partners in the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority who run the convention center. And it's something that we've been talking to them regularly. And since we've been in the convention center, which was our first year there was 2017, currently cannabis products are not permitted for use, THC specifically, in the convention center. But, we're hoping that one day that'll change.
And what about having actual product at booths, or whether it's for sale or for trade or for promotion, or how? I know that's been a topic as well. Where are we on that now?
Yeah, it's about the same. Those policies come out of the LVCVA, and everyone's being very mindful about it. It's not that there's a lack of interest. It's just more of how do we do this, and both make sure we're doing it safely, and also in a way for us that we maintain the very professionalism and business integrity of the show, which is something that has always been very important to us. We want it to be a place where you can bring an investor on the floor and show them around and tell them about how this business is really transforming, both the economy and, just society as a whole. And it's not, necessarily the bad, stigma or stereotypes that it, maybe once was. So we are really mindful of that. But in the meantime, it's something that comes out of the convention center policies.
Yeah.
Are they the ones that had the policy about the D8 during that champs? Do you know of? when during champs there was D8 that was being displayed, because you can't display flower at all, but they were actually selling and or giving away D8. So was that an issue with the convention center, or do you know?
I'm not sure exactly what happened. I'm aware of that incident. I don't know the ins and outs of it. What I can tell you, though, just from being a show operator in the convention center, is that Delta products like that are not permitted. So anything beyond that, I'm not sure, though, what happened.
Interesting. Okay. What are some other issues as an event planner at that scale? That's a huge event. What are some things that we don't necessarily see on the front side that you have to deal with or put up with? You don't have a bunch of drunks, so that's good, like a concert or something like that. I don't think there's a lot of injuries or health issues. So what are some of maybe the hurdles or issues that you have to deal with at that scale?
It's a great question. We have a joke that we should have like a behind the scenes reality show of MJBizzCon, and we think we can get some viewers on that. But I think just as being an event planner in general, the only thing you can count on is that things are not going to go according to plan. So there's just being very like agile or nimble, because things could change really quickly. And being in cannabis specifically, you always have to have a plan of, what could change with regulations, even 3 days before your show, that you have to adapt to. And, while we're always planning for things like, I wonder what's going to happen if, federal legalization happens right before the show. Like, what does that translate to, from an experience on site? So we're always thinking about things like that. But probably the most like applicable example was, running an event last year during, still in the height of the pandemic. Regulations around, are we masking? Are we not masking? Are we, what type of, with the building, there's certain sanitation standards that you have to maintain now as part that came out of COVID. So those were changing regularly, and just making sure that we were being as transparent and, communicating clearly and effectively with all of our audience leading up to it. I mean, that was a lot that we put a lot of emphasis on, because we wanted to make sure everyone knew what was happening and kind of where we were coming from, because just in our daily lives, things were changing so much.
Safe, smart, and stony. If people want to get more information about MJBizzCon, where can they find that at? Where are you at?
Yeah, so MJBizzCon.com, and check it out. In the next couple of weeks, there'll be some exciting announcements getting posted to the site, including registration opening, so you can sign up, as well as some information around like what type of content we're doing, some of the things that we talked about here today. You'll be able to find more information there, and definitely sign up for our newsletter, MJBizzCon Buzz. You can do that through our site too, but it'll give you all the behind the scenes information once a week on what's happening behind the scenes with the show.
Awesome. At social media, MJBiz, I assume, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right.
That's real quick. Do you mind if I ask a real quick question? A lot of times we'll have a big event like this, and a headliner will be some kind of celebrity. Any hints about celebrity involvement? Anything you might be able to tease us with?
I can't right now, but I can tell you that there will be an announcement soon that I think everyone will be really excited about.
Madonna.
All right. It's a 4:20 mandatory break. So got to take a mandatory break at 4:20, but I want to thank Jess Tyler. She's the Senior VP of Events and Sales at MJBiz and MJBizzCon. Jess, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Jess.
All right.
Good luck.
Take care,
Green
guys.
Rush 4:20 break right now. We'll be back though. Don't miss it.
Yeah, this is a tune that I wrote back in 19... I've forgotten. We had a saying in our old band, one of my first bands in 1966 or so. What are you going to do tonight? Oh, just, like every other night, just going to lay around the shanty and put a good buzz on. gonna sit down in the kitchen, fix me something good to eat. Make my head a little high, make the whole day complete. Gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. Pass it to me, baby, pass it to me slow. We'll take time out to smile a little before you let her go. We're gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. You're on something. Go ahead. Rick Brodsky, everybody. Nothing to do and there's always room for more. Fill it, light it, shut up and close that door, baby. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Take it, okay. Prohibition never works, it's time to realize it. It grows in my backyard, it's time to legalize it. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. I'm going to sit down in my rented car. I'm going to jam it into drive. I'm going to head on out and play at WSCA with Sean. I'm glad I'm alive. We're going to lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on every night and day. We're going to lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on.
Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out Style Lighting. Pro Cannabis Media and PCM TV programming is supported by Revolutionary Clinics in Massachusetts, the #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first. And by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 accounting solution for the cannabis industry. And by TCP's Style Lighting Grow Kit, all you need to grow.
Welcome back to the Green Rush, 2-hour weekly live cannabis business talk show produced by Pro Cannabis Media. I'm Josh Kincaid with the Talking Hedge. We got Christopher Smith. Christopher, you're back with us.
How you doing, bud?
You're still here.
I am. I'm still hanging.
We're talking this week about events. Washington State, and everyone else has not had an event. I'm in Seattle, event free during the pandemic, but we just had a craft cup. I was a judge for that. So we were down in Sodo, kind of celebrating that on a smaller scale. And then just last weekend, I went to Portland for the Leaf magazine in Portland. They had a Leaf Cup. So I think it was called the Portland Leaf Bowl. Went down there, they had an open bar, and then you could go outside and consume cannabis. In the meantime, on the stage, there were awards. So kind of a nice little, small, compact place where you can congregate, see people you hadn't seen in a couple of years. People are getting awards left and right. And that's kind of the scene for the Northwest. We really don't have big Emerald Cups. Hemp Fest is no longer. COVID wiped them out. I don't think they're going to come back. And so that's really it. There's speed dating for producer, processors, and retailers, but that's not a consumer or consumption facing event. So based, where I'm at in the Northwest, very little. Even in BC, the Grow Up Conference had something in Vancouver Island, or Victoria, but even Vancouver doesn't have a whole lot going on. So I'm looking for things to kind of ramp up a little bit more. I don't know really what that means, but in the meantime, I'm kind of flying into Vegas for MJBizzCon, the big event we just kind of talked about. And then maybe the Emerald Cup. That seems kind of cool. I've never been there. Have you?
I haven't been there, but I just last week interviewed Tim Blake. He's the founder of the Emerald Cup, as a matter of fact, and his daughter Taylor. So they're very fired up about it. They're holding it this year in Hollywood in a big theater, as a matter of fact. Woody Harrelson is getting a special award. He's one of the judges. He's got a dispensary opening very soon, so it all ties together nicely. Those entertainment guys, they really tie their stuff together perfectly. So it's a growing event. It's an exciting event. It's Emerald Cup, of course, is really about the growers, right? Because it's about picking the best strains and that kind of stuff. But interesting, what Tim told me interestingly this year was that they are going away from the sort of the high THC kind of, the highest THC is the best sort of thing. And they're really branching out and diversifying and looking at the plant in a whole different way, and with regard to terpenes, et cetera. So they're just looking at it in a much more, they're developing a deeper understanding of the plant, and it just becomes more interesting every single year.
I love that. Yeah, I talked to a company today who just found a new molecule, not cannabinoid, but
sesquiterpenes. That one?
No, this is Juva Life, and they've called it Juva 19 and Juva 41, and they're saying that the entourage effect is bunk. It has nothing to do with THC. It has everything to do with what's in the THC. So I mean, it's way over my head, I'm not talking science, but these guys really know what they're doing. They're publicly traded, and they're talking about huge opportunities. So, I'm kind of excited to even dive back into that chat that I had earlier today.
Wow.
But comparing Emerald Cup to a more wholesale event like Hall of Flowers, where you can kind of go in and you get samples. Like, I've seen some of these folks on social media, and the swag bags are phenomenal and what you can get. I think it's something where it's like a fair. You go in, you give them cash, you get tickets, and then with the tickets, you get to exchange products. And then you can also win additional tickets or something to get more products. And so this is a way for kind of other folks in the industry to sample, I guess. Is it designed for the general consumer, or is it more for wholesale?
I think it's really industry people. I don't think it's a general, like a farmer's market. No. I don't think that's the intention of it. And I remember, was it last year or was it even this year, where there was even some people arrested? There was a whole bus that went down. Law enforcement is still sort of like, they got one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake because they don't know what to do with cannabis just yet. They still want to bust as bad as, but they know that they're not really supposed to. So anyway, I know there was some of that sort of conflict or confusion, but it's important, I think, to be able to have events like that where we're all in the same room. We're all able to share and work and work with each other and bring each other up. I think those things are so important.
Mhm. Yeah, unfortunately, there's just been a shift or evolution in the industry where I think event planners kind of came in. They realized that the money really wasn't there from local producers or processors, retailers, whatever. Dope Cup, for example, Dope Magazine that was acquired by High Times and then basically shelved or whatever. They had a massive following, which is why they got acquired. And the Dope Cup, and they would get a really big musician on there, and then he'd give awards, and it was really about the culture around that. And so I think that that's sort of missing, or something that the Emerald Cup is embracing, that Hemp Fest sort of failed to capitalize on. I have friends who love cannabis and love music, but don't go to Hemp Fest. I think Emerald Cup is really kind of excelling on that, and maybe they could learn from that, create more opportunities. But I think events are here; they just need to be produced better. And so with that, there's maybe more opportunities. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we are a complete, I don't know if we're completely unique, but we are an interesting group, right? Because there is the cannabis industry and there's the cannabis community, right? And it's so diverse what cannabis is able to do and what cannabis is able to serve, that there's the tension between those two things, right? Between the solid industry players, profit and loss, and people that are just, the legacy folks and the people who have been growing, they're small farmers, that kind of thing. So that tension continues to exist. And I'm glad to see that there are events that serve these small groups, small farmers, small retailers, et cetera, that keep those types of businesses alive. It's important.
Yeah. Thomas Winstanley, VP of Marketing with Theory Wellness, is with us. Thomas, thanks for being with us. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me on a Friday. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So what you got going on?
Oh boy, we're busy as usual, coming off the back of an interesting 420 this year, looking at a lot of different expansions into some of these hot new East Coast markets. New Jersey, we're lined up on, Ohio, more Midwest, obviously, and then everything is coming into play now. And it's a really interesting time in the industry because in Massachusetts, you have a lot of new states with some, what I would consider Massachusetts now a more mature state. The landscape is changing really, really quickly. Everything from price reductions and the final kind of reduction of pricing that we've seen has been so elevated the last few years. It's a very, very interesting time, and we're seeing this an interesting kind of growth in the event space, which is really, really interesting to see. And I think it really bodes well, I think, for a broader reach for product and category that, hopefully Theory is going to be a part of it when the time really comes.
Have you guys been hosting a lot of 420 parties over the last several years?
We haven't. And a lot of it just comes back to the fact that we
Uh-oh. You guys frozen?
I'm not hearing him.
Yeah.
I think we lost his signal for a period here.
Oh goodness.
He's back.
I'm here. Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right. I was asking about the 420, if you guys were hosting parties or events on 420.
Yeah, sorry. We didn't really do too much event work this year, and a lot of it comes down to compliance and regulations, where it's really, really hard to be vertically integrated with the amount of license we have and do events where really consumption is probably one of the most exciting drivers. Even when we've had pop-ups with food vendors or other retail, they don't necessarily perform as well as one would hope. And so I think one of the big things Massachusetts is moving towards are consumption lounges and getting a little bit more open with policy around consumption and how that looks. And certainly the future of that is very exciting, I think, from our perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how you're able to market that and everything else. Before we get onto that, we've got another guest who just joined us, Adelia Carrillo with EventHi and Blunt Brunch. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. I'm doing good. Zoom was trying to do updates. I had no control. I apologize, but I'm here.
Yeah. Are you at an event right now? Are you at G4?
Mm-hmm. Yep. At G4 right now. Tomorrow heading to the Emerald Cup Awards after.
All right. You've been going to that for a while. Is that not one of you and Ollie's favorite events?
Yep. One of our favorite events. And we're excited to experience how they are transitioning to host it down in LA this time. So we're really looking forward to that.
I want to ask you why it's your favorite event, but tell me about G4 since this whole week is all about events. What's up with G4? Why are you there?
Yeah. So I'm moderating 2 panels at the conference. One is about cannabis events. The other one is about marketing. And I love it. I think, this is a great event that has a lot of potential. They're building their following when it comes to this new component. They've hosted plenty of events down the road for bud tenders. So it's really cool to see the collaboration. I love their ticket component. Their ticket includes food, drinks, like happy hour, invites to events. So they've really made this ticket component really like a wow factor to attend.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How are people able to advertise these days? I'm gonna go back to you, Adelia, and ask you how you're able to advertise. You can't do billboards or buses. Some social media are still canceling people. You don't hear about that too often. They've kind of gone towards more fake news than cannabis these days. So I want to ask the both of you about the challenges in even getting the word out. Adelia, starting with you, what are some of the challenges that you're facing in that space?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of different event organizers. We're in over 48 states, and so we hear all the different challenges they're facing. We're all very familiar with the social medias, the TikToks, everything, them getting shut down or shadow banned. So a lot of these event organizers, or even from my end, when it comes to marketing, it's almost like going backwards in a way, utilizing SMS again, utilizing direct email again, getting creative in even with the events with experiential marketing for the brands to really have customers or event goers have all these different senses being enhanced when they learn about these brands. So utilizing events too as a marketing strategy is another thing that we're seeing out here.
Okay. Thomas, how about you? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the industry in terms of just getting the word out?
Yeah, I mean, I think Massachusetts has some of the strictest regulatory laws in the country around media and advertising. And obviously you have your overarching classification of cannabis as a federally legal substance, which takes out all of these major players like your social, your Google AdWords, et cetera. And so we usually dip back into some of the more traditional styles of billboards and a lot of in-store retail marketing, lead gen capture through POS, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's your favorite event and why?
Man, so I was at, it is really event week. I don't know if that's intentional, but I was at LMC, the Luxury Meets Cannabis conference last week. I was speaking on a panel then. I'm going to MJ Unpack next week. I think they're all really interesting, and I love the nuance between them because LMCC was very, very focused on product, on emerging brands, a lot of scaling, a lot of talk of topicals, a lot of just more niche, nuanced brands. Unpacked is really interesting too because it's really for people who are in the industry. There's not a lot of kind of peripheral individuals who are coming to that event. And it's hard to say that I like one over the other because I think they all fit different molds. Obviously, MJBiz is also a crazy event in Vegas, which, it's hard to not love the atmosphere of being with all of the people that you're working with collaboratively, from packaging vendors to other people who are holding licenses and doing the same thing. So, I think when I'm there, every one of them, depending which one I'm at, they always are my favorite because in the time I'm really enjoying basically trading war stories with all the people who are going through such a very, very interesting business challenge. And it's not always that you can go and talk to your friend, who works in a different industry about the challenges because they can't honestly conceptualize how insane the things are that we're doing. So it's really, really nice to kind of commiserate with like minds.
Seems like branding is coming up a lot today in the last segment as well. Is that the motive to go to these, is to get the brand and awareness out there? Because typically it's been about the highest THC at the lowest price point. We're kind of starting to debunk that, as even the Emerald Cup we just mentioned is going away from the highest THC to get towards something that people really want, whether that's terpenes, flavonoids, whatever, minor cannabinoids, whatever it is. I think we're kind of getting away from that other, stereotype or generality. So the marketing, the branding, Is it becoming more about brands? California leads brands, Christopher, and with cookies kind of getting this global recognition. Christopher, do you feel like it's year of the brands, and are events the way to establish that?
You know what I'd love to do is actually flip that question right over to Adelia.
All right.
One of the great things in my inbox, I have to say, is the newsletter that comes out from EventHi that has so many different events and the information, the links. I mean, it's really so comprehensive, and there's so much exciting stuff going on. So Adelia's got the finger on the pulse of so much of this. I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for that compliment. We love that. We hope more and more people see it because it's exciting, you know, all these different events that are happening, and that's what we love. We're seeing the creativity. And yeah, going back to that, we definitely, we even start telling a lot of these brands that is the great way to market themselves, whether it's their own event or whether they're participating in another event. You know, it's just maximizing their footprint, getting in front of the right ideal customer. But then it's also two-sided. You know, you don't want to go to every event. Not every event is for your brand. So you have to also keep that in mind. You know, I think back in the day, pre-COVID, I know for me, I was going everywhere. I got so burnt out, you know, and now I'm re-looking at things and just being more mindful of like our time and our messaging and making sure it fits that audience. And I feel a lot of other brands are doing the same as well.
And you mentioned, Adelia, that you have relocated recently. You were in the San Diego area, and now you're in Arizona, right?
Yeah. Timing was perfect. We went right before they went recreational. So it's exciting to kind of see them transition. But it's also, it reminds me back of like how California used to be with like the event landscape. You know, they still have an easier way to give gifting and sampling out there in Arizona. And, you know, the events are kind of still that cool approach. Compared to how California has transitioned with, you know, a bit more stricter policy. The events are still amazing in California, but you know, they now have a CEO license, which makes it a little bit hard for these smaller events to afford that kind of licensing fee, you know? So it's interesting.
What's going on?
I saw you went inner tubing when it was like 93 degrees or something. I'm gonna pretend I'm not jealous at all being in Seattle, so we just won't even talk about it. Thomas, when you guys are marketing or trying to market for Theory Wellness, what is it that you guys are going after? Do you guys have specific criteria? Are you going the shotgun approach? What are you finding that's working and what's challenging?
Yeah, so you know, we have a lot of different strategies at play. So we have, you know, both a B2B to B2C component on our business. We're obviously doing a lot of wholesale, but we also have another sub brand of beverages called High Five, which is honestly a standalone. So we have almost dual B2B, dual B2C on two different brands that we're managing simultaneously. And what really I think works very well on our end is that, you know, we focus very hard in the first few years to get our core foundations right. So everything from our web stacks to our CRM collection to the data points we're getting and figuring out how we can effectively use that data. And a lot of it is timing the right message at the right time with the right people. Originally, we used to be a little bit broader about things, but as we continue to move forward in the industry and mature, we're working more on a higher frequency of touch, but with a more intentional touch that comes with it. And we
Oh boy. This is the most important part too.
I know, that was it. You're gonna have to say that again, Thomas, that last part. Sorry, we lost you again right at the key moment, right at the punchline.
Oh goodness, am I back? It's showing that I'm here, but I don't know what's happening. But
You can blame Christopher. It's okay.
It's my fault, totally.
no, it's probably the Berkshires. The Berkshires is, you know, if the wind blows too hard, your internet
Oh, there you go.
wanes and changes. But yeah, I mean, I think basically the point I was making is that we only speak unless we have something important to say for our consumers to hear. Because if you overuse your voice, you talk too much, which I can do sometimes, which is probably why my internet's dropping out. But if you don't have something important to say, you're going to lose interest with your consumers. And it's a sign of maturity to be able to say things to your consumers that they're going to want to hear. And we track that through our metrics. We track that through even asking them, how often do you want to hear from us? What do you want to hear from us? And we're always kind of building on that knowledge base to build a better funnel for our communications. And that's really how we've reached a broader audience. We've done a lot of media work in the past, but nothing is as good as giving a good message that somebody wants to hear at the right time that has relevance.
So we're talking about events, this week. And so as somebody who's going to these events, are you finding that you're getting most consumer touches for any of your products, beverages or otherwise? Are you finding that the events are the best way for validation and getting the word out? Because I know that when I was in Vegas recently for an app we had a lot of downloads by going to there versus just trying to do regular traditional marketing. It's a lot harder. It takes a lot more skill and persistence, whereas you can get that instant gratification, which is so Americana, if you go to an event. So you're finding the same kind of situation where you're getting a lot more enthusiasm, validation, hands-on and brand exchange at events?
Certainly. And most of our participation in these events are on the B2B side. So the NECANs on the East Coast, and we really only exhibit where we're obviously active in those markets. And so mostly for us, our B2B side is where we drive a lot of engagement. The event side we do on the consumer is a lot softer, and we don't really go and exhibit at the Unpacked or anywhere where there's not really a direct correlation to our brand where we can get conversions. But again, hopefully over time, I think that event universe is really untapped, it's underserved, and the big missing component is consumption, simply put. And I'd be curious to hear, Adelia, is that something, how much does consumption kind of impact events that you're seeing out on the West Side?
Well, so kind of more high level, we've been, we track a lot of the news articles that are happening from state to state. And so a lot of states are actually talking about this. Michigan is incorporating this and really embracing events and consumption, which is really exciting to see. They also have a license there. So they have like a cannabis event organizer license too. But it's still looking at our data and looking at the different states, there's still a good balance of non-consumption events. We're still seeing a lot of educational driven events, but now what's coming back again after COVID is we're seeing these festivals that are trying to incorporate or get approval to allow these consumption, like consumption lounges or consumption areas. But it is exciting to see all these states like kind of starting to embrace it and try to figure out like, how are we going to do this? How do we incorporate it? And even some of these states, political leaders or mayors, they're even noticing like, hey, it's just like alcohol, we can still have an event and just have it be cannabis consumption. So they're even now not fighting for us, but now voicing for the cannabis industry and consumption as a whole.
What are some events coming up? What do you have on EventHi's calendars that you can share with us? Anything you're excited about? Oh,
You hear me?
yeah, now I can. Wait, something's happened. Do you have earbuds? It sounds like it's crackling. Try to mute and then unmute real quick and see if that works.
I hope I'm not contagious.
It's your fault, Thomas. It's not Christopher anymore.
It's totally, I own it.
Thomas's fault now.
Can you hear me now? Should I take them out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me.
Christopher will just do an interpretive dance of what you were going to say really quick, just to bide some time.
Is it now?
I think so.
Think so?
That works. Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
I hear
Okay.
you.
Good.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Long can you hear me?
World's longest dumb.
Yes. I try to not be biased because there's just so many different events happening throughout the US. And again, we are in 48 states, but two that come to mind. There's one that's happening in Michigan and it's called the Cannabis. And so they're bringing all these different performers to come into to Michigan, and they're going to have vendors, they're going to have consumption. Another one, and what we're starting to see more of are like camping and retreats. And so there's another one that's happening in California called a Kind Bud Campout. And again, they're incorporating musicians, activations, artists, just all these different components to really enhance this event.
That sounds incredibly fun. It kind of goes back to that duality that we have in the industry, really, like the industry side and the community side. And the community side is partly it's the medical side, of course, the medicinal side, but also it's the fun side. It's the Grateful Dead side. It's just the joyfulness that's sort of in the plant and sort of keeps us all all enthusiastic about it. And I just, at any event, I hate to see if that is lost, because that joyfulness is something that's particularly special.
It really is about the community. It is. And one other thing I wanted to add that we're seeing is dispensaries are actually utilizing events too themselves. So we're seeing a lot more events from dispensary owners hosting to get people to come into their dispensaries and, have vendor days, but they're now utilizing tickets, which is smart because now they're building a database of emails too, to start, sending newsletters and keeping them updated.
Yeah, I did a story recently about all the pop-ups that are happening or are happening again, I guess, after COVID has sort of relaxing, a lot of those events. One thing I thought that was so funny, there's something, I guess it might be I'm not sure if it's a brand or if it's a dispensary, but they're branded around a Mexican wrestling. And so they actually had Mexican wrestling at like the Lucha Libre kind of a thing at one of the dispensaries in Santa Barbara. Apparently 2,000 new customers came. Yeah. So, it's just fun. It's the fun part, right? It's that part. We can't lose that part.
What about the issue of not being able to get to these events with the combination of COVID and high travel costs? There was an event I needed to go to in Vegas and they were trying to charge $400 to $800 for the flight ticket alone from Seattle to Vegas. And normally that's like a $99 ticket all day long. So the combination of high fuel and COVID, is that going to be keeping people away this season? Thomas, you're nodding your head. Go for it. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple reality is that there are a lot of economic headwinds, everything from an increasing inflation rate that's up, 8% or so, the rising cost of gas prices, which are all being passed along to consumers. There is certainly a disposable income gap that is now getting very, very narrow, which is going to impact pretty much everybody. And then you start to look at supply chain issues as well, which I'm sure everybody talks about supply chain and it's because it's real. And I think we feel the impact of it. I'm sure events are feeling the impact of it. I think it's a really tough time, not just for cannabis though, too. I mean, I want to be clear, it's not a cannabis specific issue. It's a global issue, but these things are going to have broader impacts. And I think the cannabis industry is somewhat weatherproof to economic issues in the same way that, alcohol and spirits. But at the same time, though, these kind of additional things, an event is something that's almost like a nice to have versus a mandatory for operational needs, if that makes sense.
One thing just from looking back at what we're seeing with the data, so we do have some good insights. With this past 420, we alone saw 250 events happening, which with the past 2 years, we did not see that in the event, in the cannabis event industry. So events are coming back, but yes, I agree with everything Thomas said, is we are seeing those challenges. We are still seeing virtual events happening. People are looking at that still as building their community. We're still seeing event organizers incorporate I'm drawing a blank, the virtual and the in-person events at the same time, because again, people still have certain reasons they don't want to travel, or again, going back to what Thomas said, is all those other additional costs now are definitely an impact.
Let me ask you guys a question about 420 and the impacts that maybe future 420s will have due to the pandemic. Because what I've noticed is since the pandemic, everyone's had to offer an incredible amount of discounts in the industry to get people into the stores. And now everyone seems to have a weekly discount, like Mondays is edibles, or, Mondays and Fridays are 30% off, whatever it is. Everybody has something, whether it's text, they're getting out there and they're offering these. And so when 420 happens and you don't have 50% off, it's not really drawing people in. I mean, I've been going to 20 stores on 420 for 6 years in a row, and this is the lamest 420 I've been to. And I'm wondering if that's also trickling down to events. Are people just want to go and get and have a consumption event, or are you guys seeing a reduction in overall enthusiasm for 420?
So I can answer a part of this as my internet. So I think something that we noticed this year is that this 420, we actually saw a reversal in numbers between pre-order and in-store visits. So in past years, pre-orders have been much higher for all sorts of reasons. We opened in October of 2020 up in Maine, worst time of the year. So much pre-order was running. This past year, we saw this 20 to 30% growth on in-store visits by comparison to past couple of years. And what that signals to us is that people do want to interact. People are feeling a little bit more comfortable socially. And for us, that was kind of great. But overall, when you compare this past 420 to previous ones, it was a good Wednesday. It wasn't a great 420. And that's kind of what we've heard across the board. But again, the good signal for us and the future of events, I think people are clamoring for that interaction. And I think what we may see more of is smaller events with more personal settings versus massive events with so many people. But I'm sure Adelia could speak much more clearly to that.
You hit it right on the nail. That's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot more intimate events happening. If they are large scale events, it's again, festivals. So outdoor, open floor plan, just really spread out. But yeah, definitely an increase in these smaller kind of more events. Again, I think I definitely should want to study more of like pre-COVID 420 to this last one. Obviously the numbers, it's going to grow, and I'm excited that, like I said, 250 were happening, but I do want to kind of dive in more and to see what the differentiator was. Were these all free events? Were they lower ticket costing, or were they higher compared to 2018? So I'm going to definitely look into that, and I'll keep you all posted on what we find out with that. But yeah, going back to what Thomas was saying, we are seeing these smaller, more intimate events happening, more retreats. And then if it is a bigger event, it's more festival kind of focused.
Yeah, I know California's delivery of $65 minimums was causing people to go in to avoid that. And I think that's about the price and inflation and everything else. People are kind of trying to go in, and they're really bringing that price down. So it was about $70 this time last year. And now the average item price of people going into California is under $65. So people are going in, spending a lot less, driving that price down. So as Thomas's point was, maybe people are going in to, have that interaction. And maybe a lot of people are doing it because they just want the price and convenience. They don't want to order a bunch. Pre-order is different than delivery. I understand that. That's a lot different. So going in versus pre-order, that's probably a lot more about that social thing. And the smaller events, definitely seeing a lot more regional events. I think people are kind of, there's a lot of people who are over the MJBizzCon, and that's what popped up with MJ Unpacked is the alternative, and that's brand new, right? So you're going to have alternatives, and I think that's great. There maybe should be a lighting show, maybe there should be a dirt show, maybe there should be these individual shows, and that's what normal industries have. And instead of trying to lump it all into one and have it regional, because Oklahoma is not the same as Arizona or whatever else. So to kind of have that regional pitch or feel or flavor, I think is only an opportunity for some of these event planners to go to EventHi and list it.
Nice plug.
Josh, that's exactly what both Tim and Taylor Blake were saying. There's the Emerald Cup founders. That's just exactly what they were saying, was they're looking forward to more regional events. Emerald Cup has been all California, all along, but they're looking forward to possibly New York, possibly Chicago, possibly Washington, those things, and really spreading the word that way, and getting people together around these old values that we've developed out here, and moving across the country and really sharing the love and sharing the wealth.
And what I love about that too is it goes back, like you're saying, I think you're insinuating towards it, the culture. It's going to keep that culture alive, and that community and that heart, and bringing the farmers together to showcase what they do. Going to Emerald Cup, one of the things that I love is you'll see it, and there'll be little huddles of people just showing off what, their own personal stash or what they just picked up, and they're geeking out about it. They love it. And it's really cool to see that.
That's the fun part.
We're going to have to wrap this up. We're going to go to a commercial break. We're going to have more all about the event planning industry coming up. So I want to thank my guests, both Thomas Winstanley, VP Marketing at Theory Wellness, as well as Adelia Carrillo, Chief Marketing Officer at EventHi and co-founder of Blunt Brunch. You guys, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Don't go anywhere. You guys want to come back. We're going to be here with some more guests at the Green Rush. Don't miss it.
Pro Cannabis Media and PCM TV programming is supported by Revolutionary Clinics in Massachusetts, the #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 accounting solution for the cannabis industry. And by TCP's Style Lighting Grow Kit, all you need to grow.
Difference is building a solution for that individual, not just a custom, here's a box, here's a video, here's how you make your VMS. We custom design and custom build every situation for exactly what the customer needs. And we keep the costs low. We have multiple tiers, as far as what you're looking at on the cost side of things. If you want a one-time, where you just pay one initial cost, we have that. If you want to maintain your system and have the highest protection and highest capabilities and highest upgrades at all times, we have different plans for you. But we scale it so it's scalable and affordable 100%.
Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information.
2-hour weekly live cannabis business talk show produced by Pro Cannabis Media. I'm Josh Kincaid. I'm here with Richard Smith, and we've got a couple of awesome guests. This week, we're talking about everything about events.
Richard.
To help us do that is going to be Gretchen Gailey, Chief Strategist at CWCBExpo. She's a founder and of Panoptic Strategies. Did I say that right?
That is correct.
All right. And then Susan Soares, CEO and founder of the State of Cannabis. Ladies, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. CWCBE, if I can say that right.
Yes.
What does that stand for? What is it?
That is the Cannabis World Congress and Business Expo.
Okay. So I just saw that some folks met with the UN recently, get some things rolling. What do you guys have going on in your business and trying to get the word out? What is the event all about for those that don't know?
Well, for those who don't know, our flagship event is the New York event, which will be taking place in just a few weeks, June 2nd to 4th, at the Javits Center. We're expecting over 10,000 attendees. And our slogan for many years has been where cannabis does business. Sure, there's MJBiz and lots of other events out there, but we really see ours as much more East Coast minded, which is really starting to come on in the Northeast. We've seen with a lot of states legalizing. And really, we have gotten to see a number of big deals and folks come out of some of our shows, some deals with Canopy and some other big deals have started there. And so we like to say that this is a place where people come to do business. Often people say, brands are born in California. We say they're made in New York. Susan may disagree with that one, but we do think that the Northeast is going to be a major player in the cannabis industry, and that's where the money is, at least according to Wall Street. So that's what we hope people will take away, that this is a great place to see where the industry is going next.
It's definitely where the lobbyists are at. Is that an advantage being close to DC?
It doesn't hurt. And a lot of these companies that we have been seeing emerge, a lot of their headquarters are on the East Coast. A lot of folks are in New York. And, it's easy for lawmakers and folks to get up to the show and to speak with us. We are expecting some big folks from the New York market to attend and hope that it'll help to shed some new light on what is coming in the next year for New York, especially.
Susan.
Is there any sort of a celebrity kind of a draw in the New York show? I mean, you know, New York is obviously a celebrity hub as much as Los Angeles is. Plus, add the political celebrities that might be available. Are those the kinds of people that you expect to see there?
I cannot say just yet who those official folks will be, but there are some surprise folks still coming on board. But in the past, you know, we've had Seth Meyers, we've had various other celebrities be there. Malik Yoba was there last year. We had Christopher Wallace, he was with us last year. So there's definitely a good contingency of New York celebrities. And we do generally bring out some of the politicos, so it should be fun.
Susan, I wanted to ask you about what you have going on in terms of events. Have you been to some events recently you want to talk about, or something you're looking forward to?
I am looking forward to tonight. I'm fortunate enough to be going to the Woods grand opening ceremony, and that's a new dispensary that just opened today that is owned by Woody Harrelson and Bill Maher. And apparently Seth Rogen's going to be there, Miley Cyrus, Sheryl Crow, so many celebrities. And I'm just so excited that Woody Harrelson paired up with my friend Tim Blake to do this Emerald Cup Awards ceremony together and really feature our small farmers and sun-grown cannabis, organic cannabis. It's just, you know, maybe New York is where the money is, but California is where the culture is. And I'm excited to be a part of that.
Do celebrities help sell the brands? They definitely can help define the culture, like Snoop Dogg. But I'm curious because Willie Nelson had to leave Washington State, sales didn't matter. And for events and for concerts, it is definitely a crowd drawing celebrity. But do you feel that it can translate to sales?
Who are you asking?
I'll ask you.
You know, I don't have any data on that. My gut tells me that your initial launch, you might get a mad rush. But if you don't have consistently amazing product, if you're an amazing celebrity, people are going to expect an amazing product. And if it's not, they're going to go and be more price point minded, I think. Or, you know, in my case, I would want to put my dollars where the small farmers were, issue driven purchasing. So that's my feeling. I would never buy a Mike Tyson ear gummy, for example.
Gretchen, New Yorkers are fairly, famous or known for not hassling celebrities when California celebrities make it their way to New York. Do you think though that the introduction of celebrity cannabis would make an impact in sales?
I agree with Susan. I don't think it makes a big difference, at least currently how the market is. I think celebrity products may matter more when there's national legalization, and it's much more easy access to novice users. I think that people will be attracted to celebrity brands who aren't that familiar with the brands that are already out there. And perhaps that will make a difference now, but we just aren't seeing that really play out in the markets now. People they like what they like. And one thing that we have found in the past is that cannabis users are extremely loyal. So if there is a brand and a strain that your local farmer does for you that you particularly love, that's what people keep returning to. They're not going into shops and trying to try a whole smorgasbord or there's this new thing out. That's not really their thing. They like to stay loyal to what they know works.
I think Mike Tyson will sell a bunch of those ear gummies for Father's Day, but other than that, I think the market's very small.
I think exactly. I think they're an impulse buy. I know that his gummies are available in the DC market. So part of me wants to go look for these things just to see this and are there really these ear shaped things with a bite taken out? I mean, it could be fun at a party, but I don't see myself saying this is going to be my go-to edible to go to sleep at night. Yay, Mike Tyson has put out a product now.
Yeah, I'm going to take an ear. and go to bed.
I could
Take
see
a
the
year and get
novelty of
these
it.
things.
If it was like 1,000 milligrams each and he's like, this is a knockout, then I'm like, okay, you got a product here. Outside
Maybe
of
you should
that,
become his marketing manager.
I know, king of marketing. That was even better than the ear right there. That was
I'm
good.
gonna pass on that one. Yeah. I don't think so.
Susan, I would love to hear about the event that you are working on. We have the Americas event. How's
The
that all going?
Americas event. Okay, so talk about, Gretchen knows this, producing cannabis events in the best of times is very challenging. The community, the industry, it's just tough. But then add the pandemic and then add the politics of the Summit of the Americas. Oh my God. President Biden has not even appointed the secretariat yet. The event is 3 weeks away. And the secretariat is in charge of planning the event. So people are saying that nobody might show up, you know, and a lot of people are mad because he's excluding Cuba and some other countries. And so there's some boycotts going on there, but it was just too good of an opportunity to have all of these heads of state in my hometown. So my thought was, you know, why not try and do something during that time? And it's just been evolving, or I should say devolving, as the weeks progress. But we are going to go in there with a bunch of correspondents. We're going to have our correspondent outfits on. We're going to look like the true journalists that we're trying to be. And we're going to grab anybody that's got one of those name badges on, and we're going to ask them, hey, is cannabis on your mind? What are you thinking? What's going on in your country? And we've got a nice newspaper that we'll be handing them that's going to have helpful articles and talking points when they're in discussions to make it easy for them to sound smart and informed. And we're going to have a map of cannabis experiences that are within a few miles of there, and a directory of other businesses. So I'm really excited about grabbing a lot of content, networking with these heads of state that are part of our hemisphere, and honestly providing a solution for them, because this body that's trying to be like the European Union, it was a good idea, but it has just been falling apart. And my contention is cannabis is a brand new industry. We're birthing this industry. Why not use this opportunity to do business in a different way? And that could be a real good economic recovery solution for the Americas. So we're just there to start the conversation.
Great.
What are some steps for a successful event? Like, how are you able to put on an event? I've been to a lot, what I would call a shit show. I've been to a lot of them, and there's plenty of those out there, but how do you do it in a way where you get people to come back? Gretchen, what is your steps for success?
I think you need to offer people a unique experience. And I think sometimes you have to cater to a specific audience. And so that way it's not too broad, and where you're trying to hit on too many things that really keep the event from having a focus. If you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're not going to be anything to anybody. And so if you want to have a good conference that's fashioned around cannabis policy, then make sure that you are hitting on the topics that people want to hear. You have people in the room that they're going to want to see. It's not one thing, and I hate to keep going back to MJBiz, that drives me nuts about MJBiz is that it's just so all encompassing everything under one roof. And I understand that we have to do that because it's cannabis, but you don't see any other industry operate that way. You don't buy lights and dirt the same place that you get security and that, or that you talk to an accountant or a lawyer. All these folks have their different things of focus that they are trying to get information on. And so to have all that under one roof, it just makes it overwhelming. And I know so many folks nowadays who say they don't go to that show anymore they come to town when it's in town so they can meet with people and talk to everyone in the same city at the same time. But that going to the actual show is just not worth their time. It's so much for the looky-loos and, you know, the babies, the cannabis rookies who are just getting into the space. So I think a successful event, I like the smaller events. I don't like them to be huge. I like them to be really tailored to the folks that you want them to speak to. And if people can find good conversations and good strategic relationships that they can build and know that they're going to meet quality people, I think that's what keeps people coming back.
Susan, what are your recommendations, advice, or steps for a successful event?
I agree with everything that Gretchen just said. I've always felt that the smaller, more intimate events are more fruitful. And I've always sort of curated my events. The last 5 years, my events have been invite only because I'd rather have 200 people in the room that they can all talk to each other. They all have something that they can do together instead of having to sift through all those looky-loos. So I've been doing the small intimate events forever. And I think that that's, because of COVID, I think that we're just going to see that more and more. Smaller, more local, curated events. And for me, the venue is so important. I mean, it puts you in this place. I've done my event on the Queen Mary twice, and I would be doing it again and again, but it's been closed down before COVID for remodeling. And I don't know if it's ever going to open up again, but talk about just putting you in the frame of mind of history. You're on that ship and you feel the history and it changes your attitude and it just makes the event more memorable. Not to mention there's ghosts on the ship. So I had so many people tell me they saw ghosts when they went to my event.
Well, I like what both of you said. Really, the thing you both cued on automatically really was about building relationships, which is the whole point, right? I mean, you can go to a conference and sort of be an observer and watch all this kind of furious activity go on, or you can build relationships that help your business, that help move the whole industry forward. And that, of course, is the whole purpose. So I love what both of you are saying about that, focusing on the intimacy, but really with the purpose of developing relationships that work for people.
I think from an organizer standpoint, it's so important to have a good relationship with your venue, to understand the rules of what it is to put on an event there. Is it a union shop? So you can inform your vendors and other people coming in. Years ago, my first job was working with New Frontier Data in the industry, and we went to every conference under the sun. And, our crew for putting up the booth was me and, a couple of other poor saps that I could sucker into it who didn't get it, escape fast enough getting off the plane. And so really the events I valued were the ones where I knew I could go there, see the organizer. What do I need to do? Where am I going? If you have that kind of organization, I think from a vendor standpoint, that's so key. And that's going to keep people coming back. If it's a shit show, if they can't find their plugs, if they don't know who to speak to, to figure out where their booth has come in from, that just makes for a horrible experience. And I wouldn't deal with a show again if it's run poorly.
There's a lot you can learn from mistakes, though. What are some things that you've experienced like that? For me, it's hard for me to go and listen to people when it's a pay to play, because it feels like they're not the subject matter expert. They're just the ones who ended up writing the check. For you guys, what does make a shit show? Gretchen, do you have anything that you've learned that you wouldn't implement or do, or things that, advice on what makes a shit show?
Well, there's lots of shit shows. When it comes to panels per se, I wouldn't put more than 3 people on a panel. I don't be, and then as an organizer, I am very cognizant of who is a good team player, or who is going to step on their other speaker, who's going to just do a commercial for themselves. When it comes to the Q&A, that drives me nuts when you hand over the mic and some guy gets up and starts talking about his business, has nothing to do at all with the topic, and is just trying to do a commercial for himself. So for that, I like to write your questions on a card, pass them up to the front. And then we have our moderator go through them and really ask the questions. So we're not losing that kind of time during a Q&A, and really try and keep much more control over an event. When people run amok with a mic, that just drives me nuts.
Yeah, that is a shit show. And I've always hated that. And so I've always, when I start a panel, I say, okay, I'm going to be standing over there against that wall next to that mic on a stand. If you have a question, come get in line. And so as the panel's going on, I've got a line forming, because that's one of the reasons some people come, a lot of people come, because they do want to get that mic time. They want to get that recognition, and that's why they grab the mic and they go on and on. I don't let anyone ever touch the mic. And when they're in line, I say, okay, what's your question going to be? And if they start saying, oh, well, I'm this contractor that's been doing all the, no, what is your question? What is your one question? And they have to tell me a question. And I might say, well, they just covered that. So go to the end of the line and think of another question. And I run that Q&A line, and everybody really appreciates it. They want to have their 15 seconds of fame, so they get it. But it's we get through a good 5 to 10 questions. So yeah, I think people feel kind of cheated if they have to write it down on a card and don't get to ask it themselves. But also, I was getting to a point where the panels were getting less and less important. People were wanting to come to network. And now, because of COVID, man, people just want to network. They just want to talk to each other. They don't want to sit there and be talked at. So I'm going to start doing more roundtables and more curated networking.
Interesting. I was just at the Money 2.0 conference in Vegas, and there was no networking, and I was surprised. It was one of the weirdest shows I've been to, because it was really just all about the end consumer, I guess, without that business to business networking. It was weird. It was like an odd conference. So probably won't go to that for that reason and many more. What's your favorite show, Gretchen?
Other than CWCBE?
Yeah, of course.
Well, and honestly, I'm sad to say that they're gone. My favorite show, honestly, I quite enjoyed going to Art Views. Years ago, Art View was much smaller. You'd have a couple hundred people. They had 5 or 6 a year. And you went to all of them and you would see the same people. While you're seeing the same people over and over again, they were good quality people that you wanted to talk to and have relationships with. And there's still plenty of contacts that I made there 6-7 years ago that I know I need someone in space. I know exactly who to call. And because it's so small and intimate, you really got to know each other. And you got to see companies blossom and grow, which was really interesting. And it almost became more of, and I hate to say this, more of like a family. It was just it was very nice. It was always inviting. It was always a safe place for all the cannabis novices. I've seen some folks, doing their pitches go down in flames. They don't remember what they're saying. And instead of, people being awful, you would hear people, yell questions from the audience to try and spur them on to help them remember what they were doing. And it was just it was a very forgiving and a very good crowd. And I dearly miss them, and I wish that ArcView would bring them back. Things have been a lot different since Troy left, and I miss the soul that they brought to what was a very, kind of cold financial shark pitch kind of world, but it still had the love and community of cannabis. And ArcView was honestly the first event that I snuck into back in 2014. And I'm like, sure, send the redhead to be incognito at an event and fly under the radar. This will work very well. But they did not kick me out, and they were very kind. And I greatly enjoyed it.
Susan, anything you want to share about maybe a favorite event that you have and why?
My favorite event of all time is the Emerald Cup. I don't know what it's going to morph into. They've had a really rocky couple of years, and the last couple of months have been really rough, but talk about culture. I mean, the first one that I went to, it was in Garberville, and it was at this little community center, and it was in the middle of a blizzard, because they do it the second week of December, they used to, and you had to go through the muddy snow to get to this giant tent, which was a giant hot box, and there were seed people from all over the world, and they were selling their seeds. And so it's just this second, third, fourth generation farmer culture. And they finished their season of sun growing their beautiful cannabis, and everything's cured. Well, not all the way, but and they're ready to party and hang out with each other. It's amazing.
I haven't gone, but I'm looking forward to it. But I think with that, we got to roll this one up. So I want to thank my guests, both Gretchen, Gailey, Chief Strategist, CWCBExpo, and the founder of Panoptic Strategies, as well as Susan Soares, CEO and founder of the State of Cannabis. Ladies, thanks for being with us at the Green Rush.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. Come right back to the Green Rush.
You would think that it is. However, there's quite a bit of debate right now in the accounting industry when it relates to cannabis with this exact question. I'm part of a few different networking groups that are solely accountants for cannabis companies. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth in those communities and discussion regarding whether 280E, if it went away, if the administration legalized cannabis or took it off of Schedule 1, what would happen? And it could go either way right now. The debate is it can make the accountant's life much easier. That's what a lot of the inexperienced accountants are saying right now, it seems, whereas the accountants that have been in this industry for a while and have gone through the same thing that happened with hemp a few years ago are saying that it actually will make lives more difficult, because when hemp became declassified a while back, the accounting became more complicated.
Difference is building a solution for that individual, not just a custom, here's a box, here's a video, here's how you make your VMS. We custom design and custom build every situation for exactly what the customer needs. And we keep the cost low. We have multiple tiers, as far as what you're looking at on the cost side of things. If you want a one-time, where you just pay one initial cost, we have that. If you want to maintain your system and have the highest protection and highest capabilities and highest upgrades at all times, we have different plans for you. But we scale it so it's scalable and affordable 100%.
Cannabis Media and PCM TV programming is supported by Revolutionary Clinics in Massachusetts, the #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 accounting solution for the cannabis industry. And by TCP's Style Lighting Grow Kit, all you need to grow. Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information.
Welcome back to the Green Rush. This is a 2-hour weekly live cannabis business talk show produced by Pro Cannabis Media. I'm Josh Kincaid. I'm sitting here with Christopher Smith. We've got a guest, Omari Jackson. He's the CEO and founder of Ganja Activists. Omari, thanks for being with us at the Green Rush.
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very, very happy and honored to be here.
Appreciate it. We're going to talk about what you got going on in Jamaica and your events. We've also got Brian Yauger. He's the CEO of Lemon Haze, with Penny Cook, the CFO of Lemon Haze. Thanks for being with us, y'all.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Hi, nice to meet you guys. Great.
Great to meet you guys too.
Yeah. Brian, we're going to start with you guys. Did you just have a recent golf tournament? Tell us a little bit about Lemon Haze and maybe either what you had going on or maybe an event you have coming up.
Yeah, Josh, we are actually, we have had a few recently. We are full go in the middle of our 2022 Lemon Haze Cannabis Golf Executive Golf Classic Tour. So we have already this year done, we've already done Florida, Phoenix, Southern California, Nevada, and we're on our way to Northern California this week and Ohio next week. So we are right in the middle of it.
That's quite a few. You got your CFO, Penny Cook. Penny,
COO, actually.
What is that?
COO, actually.
COO. Okay, that's different. Running operations, that's not an easy task when you're doing multiple events across state lines. What is your tips and tricks to keep organized?
That's right. We have a small and mighty team, and we have some great technology and processes and partners behind the scenes that let us do quick turn on our events. So we really can have an event on one side of the country one week and then appear on the other side of the country with that same event kit and our team in place without breaking a sweat the next week.
All right.
Yep.
I've never been golfing in Jamaica, but I'm assuming there's a golf course somewhere, Omari. But you're not running a golf tournament, though. What do you got going on with Ganja Activists and the events out there in Jamaica?
We don't do golf, but that is a very good idea, and Jamaica would be ideal for such an event. We should talk about that.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, right on. Right on. We'll talk. Okay, right on. But for this summer, we're having the ganjaactivist.com Caribbean Cannabis Summit, Exchange and Trade Show in the Carrillo, Jamaica. This will be kind of one of the first of its kind. This is an event that's kind of embracing more of a community, more of the farmer approach. We have the cannabis exchange, the seed exchange, to kind of get people involved. We want to introduce people to breeders, international and local breeders, just to kind of raise the bar of the seed varieties that we have in the country. And we have various different initiatives. But one of the main purposes is to bring, I guess, all industry stakeholders across the region, across the Caribbean, to kind of come together to try to establish a framework that can work as a unified Caribbean. Say if we're producing in Jamaica, processing in Trinidad, where your electricity costs are much lower, and then we have other tourism markets to Barbados and so on. It's the different frameworks that we can work, try to get our own little ecosystem going on with banking as well, because that's of course an issue for everybody. Somehow we could start a framework to move in that direction, because the American federal legalization is not going within the time frame that I think any of us expected with the previous president.
Omari,
it's all right. Go ahead.
What's your personal or professional opinion about the ability for the Caribbean to kind of come together and organize something to that extent, to where they could have kind of inter-island operations? Or maybe you could just explain, like, Jamaica in and of itself. It seems like there's very similar to Mexico, where there's a lot of war and violence, and so some of the individuals attribute that to the drug cartels, and it's given the plant a bad name. And I just from what I've read, and I'm thinking that's a lot of people in Jamaica, and some of the officials, maybe police officers, have that same feeling. Is that an uphill battle? Where are you at in Jamaica, and where's the Caribbean at in terms of being able to solidify those plans to get that kind of inter-island community going to where you could do that?
That's a lot of questions in one.
Yeah,
That's all right. Trying to, first of all, trying to establish a Caribbean community. Well, we do have something called CARICOM, but even trying to get an inter-Caribbean framework with with which much has always proved very, very, very difficult. With cannabis, is going to be absolutely no exception. I guess with the exception that we do have a unified cause with getting it legalized and opening up the trade and so on and so forth. So that may well help to foster that. As far as the development of the industry, well, as far as I would say the proliferation, we still definitely get a lot of pushback, even right here in Jamaica. There's a lot of the strong Christian contingent. I think they have the most churches per capita, and there are priests who still get up and say, that this is the devil's lettuce and so on, and people will listen. So we do have, that is another uphill battle, and many of them are within the parliamentary ranks, and they have their own position, their own positions, as well as in the public and private sector as well. And then there's the private sector who wants to get involved to some degree. It is kind of still the whole gangster thing, as well as their own personal whatever's. But of course, banking becomes an issue because of the ties between the Jamaican banks and the U.S. banks. They're afraid they're going to clamp down on them because of the lack of federal legalization, so they don't want to touch it. So there's just a lot that needs to be done, and that's really stifling it. That's why would you want to see we can do in the Caribbean, even within the banking. There's the Eastern Caribbean EC dollar. That's a currency. Why don't we start trading in that in between us? Let's look at crypto. I just think there are ways that we can really kind of move forward without waiting for if you want to see our big brother to move forward, before it's type of thing,
Yeah, definitely not easy. And yet, Brian, you're able to kind of have this leisurely event with, stars like Ricky Williams and some other well-known individuals to kind of bring focus and attention to an industry and yet still conduct business on a large scale. There's been a lot of deals that have been happening on the golf course during the Lemon Haze events. Can you kind of walk us through like how that happens?
Yeah, so really the concept of the whole thing was to really just get all the decision makers in any market. And then there's markets all over the country. Then there's obviously a national market, but any market, whether it be Southern California or Massachusetts or Michigan, get the decision makers and get them into one place. We happen to use golf as the way to get them into one place, and that honestly came out of COVID. Josh, you and I talked about it last year. It was a time where they were starting to allow events to come back. And at that time, the events could come back, but they had to be small. They had to be under 250 people, and you had to figure out how to do them socially distanced. Well, golf is outside and it's less than 250 people. And then all of a sudden we put 150 decision makers on one golf course, and it just really worked. Because you're not going to put that many decision makers in one place at one time without some kind of business being discussed. So, and it's being discussed in a fun, relaxing atmosphere. And it just, it hit a nerve, and it went really, really well. And, I want to throw one more thing onto that. So we were talking about, Penny coming on, doing our operations. So, Lemon Haze has been around since 2016, and we've done things with bud tenders. We've done things and with buyers. And when the golf tournaments came around and we got the executives together in an environment like we were just talking about, and it really got legs and took off fast. That was a point where I kind of sat back and looked at what my skills were, what my skills weren't. And Penny had been a longtime advisor to Lemon Haze going all the way back to 2016. She comes out of a very out of a startup background, but also a very successful startup background. Startups that have gone on to IPO and an Ivy League background. A lot of operations things that was not my skill set. So where I was like, let's push this thing forward. Let's get these executives in the room. Let's get these in the room. But then also I was noticing places where we were dropping the ball, and I called Penny and just said, I need help. I said, come on, I need help. And to do as much as we've done in as many markets as we do them, that is a lot of moving parts. And so when Penny came on, she was able to take that and it's just a really a way of having to, make your leadership team of opposite skill sets that can really play off of each other. And that's what's been really exciting about this year.
It's hard enough to put one event on, but to scale it and to have multiple events in so many different states is really hard to get people to come to, because you have to brand it. It's one thing just having maybe a celebrity or something to draw it in, but it's another to get people to kind of come back. I just was mentioning in the last segment, I went to an event in Vegas, not going to go back. but for you, you have people that continuously keep going back. So it's obviously worth it. So, I mean, that kind of speaks for itself. Omari, do you kind of feel in Jamaica, in order to get people to come out to the Caribbean, is there a need to push that Bob Marley, idea or concept? Does it need a gimmick, or does Jamaica have everything they need without that?
I think Jamaica just runs a lot, synonymous with ganja and that level of the culture. So I mean, I will say, granted, being here in the Grill, the level of the Mecca, that does help significantly with the branding and everything. It was not necessarily purposeful. If I was living in Trinidad and Tobago, maybe this would not be what I'd be doing. I mean, it lends to it, and there's also the necessity of it, because this is also what we want to see coming out of Jamaica. We want to see a prolific industry develop, and so yeah, it's part of the course. It's what should happen, and we're making it happen, basically. Yeah.
Is the community there open to more events and having people come in and looking at it? Because I know with other Caribbean islands, Puerto Rico being a territory of the US, there's a lot of pushback because everybody's diving in there right now, and there's the locals just don't want to have that change in housing prices and everything else. Are you worried about what the cannabis industry could do to Jamaica and its culture?
Not necessarily. I think that the Jamaican influence in the cannabis industry is kind of outweighs anything that anybody can, quite frankly, import. And then there's a whole Rastafarian culture that is fully supportive of it, and there's a low tolerance level for high excessive capitalism, that the exploitation would not be tolerated either. So we have that buffer, if you will. But it's the industry is coming into its own, quite frankly, because I would say that there is within our the legislation and so on, all companies have to be at least 50% Jamaican owned. So there is that level of ownership on certain levels, at least at the board level. What work they do is different. How that is structured is always questionable. But I know the Jamaicans, I would say the industry as well is more than welcoming of investors and so on to come in. There is the issue of the banking, and it's just there. I think it's just there was kind of an initial free, kind of land grab for a couple of entities, and that worked really well. Then I think they left because of whatever internal issues that they had. It was really not any issue having to do with the Jamaican market. But I just think that the Jamaican market needs to kind of develop itself. It's still in a level of maturation. And again, the education needs to be there. The foundational elements need to be there. We can't just be expecting people just to come and just be growers at the lowest level. We'd love to see them at all the levels of any entity, any company, and have a say in what is being produced and how it's being exploited. The government needs to play their role in getting our exportation, whatever those things that they do, getting all that drafted and passed so that we can legally have a nice trail of export. And I think we'll see things they will start to move. It is a teething process. It's a bit, unfortunately, slower than people would have expected, but we're also a small nation. I guess we can put that out there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Omari, are there any particular events coming up in Jamaica that you'd like to share?
Well, as I was saying, we have our event, which is June 30th to July 3rd. That's the ganjactors.com Caribbean Cannabis Summit, Exchange and Trade Show. That's in the Grill. The Grill, Jamaica. Then there is the annual event. I believe Canix Jamaica is happening. I think that's in the fall. That's the conference and summit, a little bit more corporate oriented, but that's great as well. We need that. And outside that, well, there with COVID having just kind of now really subsiding, there were a few events that were kind of staple on the calendar. We're not certain with when or where they're coming back, but I do expect to see that those events coming back. I am planning after this. This is going to be like a scaled down model of what I'd love to see happening in December, which is like a Ganja week, where we can kind of open up an entire street over here in the West End of Grill, and all the Ganja friendly areas they can serve. They can be selling certain products. The snap people can come with their arts, their crafts, their hemp, clothing, all this kind of, just open it up to ganja industry, basically. That's
Nice.
but it's coming, it's as I say, it is a slowly developing industry. We are struck with a lot of the encumbrances that people do face elsewhere, even though Jamaica's kind of ganja nation. It's we do have a lot of roadblocks still that we do face, as well as I think there is the maturation of the industry itself. There's a way that people are used to doing business in the past, and now there's a completely different way to operate, and that now needs to be identified, acknowledged, and learned, quite frankly.
Right.
Penny, I'm taking a poll. I'm asking everybody what their favorite show or expo or conference is and why.
Oh, well, I'm super biased, and I would have to go with the Lemon Haze Bud Tender parties are some of the most happening things that we have going on in the industry. And it's where we honor and we bring to the forefront the most important people in the cannabis industry. We honor the bud tenders, and we let the brands come out and educate them. And it's like, it's a party that's just for them. They have a great time. We understand from region to region who they are. And to Omari's point, he talks about really the specifics of what the cannabis industry is like in Jamaica. We find around the country that it is very hyper local. The culture is really, honoring where all of these different outposts are for cannabis right now. And Lemon Haze is really sensitive to that. And, something that we're able to leverage with Brian being one of the most connected people in cannabis is we understand what's going on in these local markets, and we're able to really cater to that on an individual basis for, when we're in Detroit, when we're in Cleveland, when we're in Southern California. These events all look really different, and the bud tenders culturally are different, and the industry looks different. And we really do honor that where we go.
Brian, you've been in the game for quite a while. It doesn't even have to be cannabis related, but what's your favorite expo or conference or show you've been to?
It's hard to ask when you're talking about a guy that puts them on. It's obviously, but for all the reasons we talk about, and I could say so many good things about so many shows. What Hall of Flowers does out in California is really impressive, and I've always liked that concept of putting the brands first on some of the shows. Obviously, you look at something like what MJBiZCon has done over the years and been able to build that to something to the size they have, and honestly, we're able to get acquired due to it. And but I'm biased, and it's honestly because I built what I wanted. And so when you look at like what you came to last year to check out, Josh, our Lemon Haze our Lemon Haze Campus Executive Golf Invitational, which we invited all of the most powerful decision makers in the country, all the C-suite of the major MSOs, Curaleaf, GTI, Crisco Labs, Juicy, Tilt, all of them. And then the private companies, Steezy, Raw Garden, we're all there. And, again, there's so many good things that I could say about all of the major shows around the country. And I may just mention too that I respect immensely. But I built what I wanted. So when we did ours, it was really I knew over years of being in this industry that it's really hard to get all the decision makers in the same spot. So we just found a way to do it, and we did it in a fun way. And it's going to grow even bigger this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm smelling a tournament, a golf tournament in Jamaica this December. I'm just planting a seed.
The second you said it, it's funny you said that, because we do have on our roadmap to start going internationally. We do have on our roadmap to go to Toronto and Montreal and Puerto Rico. And I am actually going to get your email address as soon as we're off of this. I am actually, and I'm not even saying that as a joke on a pod. I'm actually saying I'm going to get your email address, and we're going to talk.
Yeah, one of the best things about our tournaments and our bud tender parties and our upfronts is that everything we put on has got to be fun, and people are happy, and people would be happy.
You're not going to be sad being in Jamaica in December. There's no sad.
There's no sad.
Right? No, there you go.
Right?
Real,
It is
real.
very
No,
lemon
your
hazy.
events do sound amazingly interesting. I'm very, very curious to how you sort out the logistics for as you move around the country and so on. I'm assuming you have very, very core teams on the ground in each location as well, especially if you also make it localized. That's unique. That's interesting. I've never.
Yeah, you know, and that's where I want to talk to you. So it is, and we really, there's a couple of things that go into it when you're dealing with venues, and luckily when you're dealing with golf courses, a lot of golf courses are owned by just some very large corporations. So you get to know them, and once you know them, they introduce you to who you need. But it really comes, and this goes right back to what Penny did when she came on, because it is, you're right, doing 14 tournaments this year and 22 next year, 23 once we add Jamaica, because that's coming. Then and you know, even this year when you throw in our bartender events, you know, we're doing, I think it's on the roadmap right now, 39 events in 42 weeks this year, in you know, in 30 plus markets. It is a logistical nightmare, but you build as much of a wash, rinse, repeat model as you can. Then you talk with every market, every venue, and you adjust accordingly for what you need to adjust for. What, you know, because what you adjust for in California is completely different than what you adjust for in Massachusetts, which is 100% different what you adjust for in Florida and Illinois. And so you get in contact with, you know, with guys like you. You say, okay, where are the specifics that we need to do? And then I keep going back. Penny looks at it and goes, okay, here's the things we do every time. And I say, these are the things we need to tinker with, and you just get it done.
Yeah.
And,
right on.
And what's most important to us is that we're here to help the industry grow. We're here to help established companies spread their wings, continue to get entrenched in the industry. We're here to help new companies get a foothold in the industry, and the whole industry benefits from it. When everybody comes together, everybody has that mission together. And that's really what we're all about. So region to region and city to city, we're really looking at what's going on and bringing the people to the table who will help further that for the industry everywhere we go.
Right. Our tagline is learn, connect, and execute. That's kind of exactly it. It's just bring people together, learn from it, and get something done. Exactly. Get it off the ground, get it moving, move it forward, get it, you know, yeah, exactly right. That's what
absolutely.
Omari, I can only imagine you've been inspired to put on events because of things you've been to in the past, whether that was a concert or expo or conference or whatnot. Do you have anything in your mind or memory that's like your favorite, you know, that you care to share, and why that particular event was your number one?
Right. I'm glad that you phrased it that way, because if I had to choose from a select amount of conferences, I do not have quite that much experience, especially being in the Caribbean. But I would have to say I love festivals. I think I did a Pink Pop in Holland many years ago, wherever that in Europe some years ago. And that is, it's a camaraderie, it's the people coming together that really kind of inspired me to put this on. I will say this: I come from like a media, more television, film background, and I was always in trying to get, say, sponsorships for my production work. People, I would always see the company be putting their money into events. So I was actually like anti-events until I made a movie and started doing screenings for that, and then that led into virtual events, and now this. But I think quite frankly, it's really about it comes down to bringing people together. The panels, you want to have a nice cohesive panel. I think someone was saying earlier, no more than 3 people. I completely agree with that. Because you don't want people stepping on each other, and you want to get the information out. But it's really just about that. People coming together to learn, to engage and connect with each other. Let's share some ideas. Let's see what comes out of it, and then to engage in what comes together. I'm trying to create an experience, an environment where people can have that experience. I guess that's really what I'm putting together. Yeah, that's the way. That would be my optimal event. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. I guess.
Where can people get more information about your event as we wrap up this Green Rush podcast? Omar, you got some stuff coming up. As if people have information or questions, where can they go and find out more information about what you got going on?
Well, the website is ganjaconference.com. That's got all the information. Even tickets are also available right now. In fact, we had an early bird special that's going to and tonight, but we could, but then we have a second one that kicks in shortly. It's ganjaconference.com. That's the event website. Our main website is ganjaactivist.com, which people always confuse. Ganja activist. It's not ganja, it's just one A in the middle there. But the Ganja conference is nice and easy for people to get. So ganjaconference.com, everything is right there. Any questions, you can email us at summit@ganjaactivist, anything at ganjaactivist.com is fine. Info at ganjaactivist, Omari at ganjaactivist.com. We're on LinkedIn. I'm very, I'm out there. I'm responding to people. So just, the normal channels as well. Ganjaactivist.com is our brand, and the Ganja Summit is the website, and the event is the ganjaactivist.com Caribbean Cannabis Summit, Exchange, and Trade Show in Negril, Jamaica, June 30th to July 3rd. Very sorry, just before July 4th, but it's one of those things.
Yeah. And you heard it from Omari first on Pro Cannabis Media here at Green Rush that it is ganja.
Thank you.
It's ganja, people.
Ganja. That's right. You're listening in. That's right. We were having that debate earlier. Yes, that's right. Ganja. I don't know what you say. Maybe that should be like a poll. We'll do something online. Ganja.
Different podcast. Yeah.
Now you have me twisting it up. Ganja. Anyways, Ganja. It's Ganja Activist.
Ganja.
The ganjaactivist.com, and it's Ganja. That's what's up. Got to open it up.
Penny,
open up your mouth.
maybe you want to tell us where people could find Lemon Haze. Where's the next tournament at? Where can people find you? I know you're on social media too.
Social media, yep. And we're lemonhaze.com. And you can find us at Lemon Haze on social media. And we'll be in Granite Bay, California on this coming Monday, and in Cleveland, Ohio, a week from Monday.
All right. That's coming up soon. And we will definitely get you guys connected so you can create a golf tournament in Jamaica. But with that, I think we're going to have to roll this one up. So I want to thank all of my guests today. That's Brian Yauger, the CEO of lemonhaze.com, and Penny Cook. She's the COO of Lemon Haze. And then, of course, we got Omari Jackson kicking it in Jamaica. He's the CEO and founder of the ganjaactivist.com. Check out his event out there. And, of course, Christopher Smith holding it down here. So I'm Josh Kincaid with The Talking Hedge. You can find me at The Talking Hedge. Christopher, where are you at?
AmericanCannabisReport.com, and that's on the web and on social media as well. Same.
All right. Thank you guys. I had a great time. Thank you very much for inviting me on. Thank you guys. I had a great time. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great weekend.
Together, all of you.
Coming up on We Talk News this week, voters in Austin, Texas deliver a ballot question for decriminalization of cannabis this fall. Another banking association gives thumbs up to safe banking. U.S. senators throw out that amendment. New York Senator Chuck Schumer says he's talked to 6 Republican senators who will consider his cannabis reform bill. Nevada says no mixing of alcohol in those cannabis social lounges scheduled to open in Las Vegas in the fall. And Thailand is giving its citizens 1 million low-level THC cannabis plants to grow for medicinal purposes. Just don't consume it in public. All that and more on this week's We Talk News. Pro Cannabis Media original content is supported by Salient Systems, your trusted name in video surveillance for the cannabis industry, and by Revolutionary Clinics, Massachusetts' #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Accounting Buds, CPA services for the cannabis industry, and by stylighting.shop. Log on today to get your grow kit.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to We Talk News. I'm Elena Pinto reporting for Pro Cannabis Media. And our top story this week, we look at the Lone Star State of Texas. And even though hemp is grown and accepted as a cash crop and Delta-8 is legal and available, cannabis possession is still illegal. That might change, though, in the Texas capital city of Austin in the fall. In a special election for ballot questions, 85% of the voters said yes to adding decriminalization to the ballot in the fall. When it comes to news about cannabis or hemp in that state, There's only one person who covers the progressive movement on a regular basis. His name is Russell Dowden, and he's got the Texas Hemp Report for Weed Talk News.
Hi, this is Russell Dowden with the Texas Hemp Reporter and the Texas Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. On Saturday, Austin voters decided to pass Proposition A, stopping arrests for low-level marijuana offenses. The proposition passed with 85.5% of the vote. The proposition was created from a petition organized by Ground Game Texas. According to the organizers, most of those signing were Austin's younger adults. Now, this says something about the culture of cannabis in the city known for its weirdness. Since 2012, over 100 cities and counties such as Milwaukee, New Orleans, Philadelphia, and St. Louis, and over a dozen states, including Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Texas, have enacted municipal laws or resolutions either fully or partially decriminalizing minor cannabis possession offenses. In 2020, Austin City Council voted to end police enforcement of low-level marijuana offenses through a resolution. This is Russell Dowden again with the Texas Hemp Reporter and the Texas Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News.
The newest state to welcome adult use sales in the United States is New Mexico. April was the first full month of sales there, with $22 million of weed sold for adult use and $17 million for medical use. That's just under $40 million total. So welcome to the weed world, New Mexico. Now to one of the oldest cannabis markets, California. The adult use industry there continues to teeter on disaster thanks to the over-regulations that accompanied the introduction of adult use sales in 2016. Christopher Smith from the American Cannabis Report has more in our California update.
Greetings from the center of the cannabis universe. I'm Christopher Smith, publisher of the American Cannabis Report, and this is the California Roundup for Weed Talk News. Recently, California State Assembly member Bill Quirk introduced legislation that would amend California's Fair Employment and Housing Act by making it illegal for any employer to discriminate against adult applicants or employees based on a person's use of cannabis off the job and away from the workplace. The bill would also prevent discrimination against an applicant or employee who fails a drug test detecting non-psychoactive cannabis metabolites. Not all workers would be covered, however. The bill allows exceptions for federal employees, construction trade employees, or individuals with occupations that are required by federal or state law to be tested for controlled substances. Now, I've reported several times about how California, the world's largest cannabis marketplace by a long shot, could be even bigger except for short-sighted and greedy tax policies. For example, state and local taxes on legal cannabis are as high as $90 per ounce, or $1,441 per pound. In Oregon, taxes average only $340 a pound, and in Colorado, they're $526 a pound. So, Oregon residents spend almost 4 times per capita on legal cannabis, and Coloradans spend more than 3 times as much. This is part of the reason why California's legal cannabis market is just 1/3 the size it was expected to be, based on the state population and adult usage rates. And nearly 2/3 of our cannabis sales are still taking place in the illicit market. It's ridiculous. A new study by Reason Foundation, Good Farmers, Great Neighbors, and Precision Advocacy has found that by simply eliminating the egregious cultivation tax, California could increase legal sales and bring in 123% more in total monthly tax revenue by 2024. Get this done. Now, I'm a little embarrassed to report that the greed of California officials extends onto the California highways, where sheriffs seem to think that their real life is like a movie script. Here's the setting. For various reasons we've discussed before, cannabis companies do not have easy access to banking and are forced to take their cash and transport it to safe places in armored vehicles. San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dicus ordered armored vans to be stopped and robbed on 3 occasions, making off with $1.1 million in cash, the very definition of highway robbery.
He immediately transferred the cash to the FBI, believing that his department would then automatically get 80% of the loot. But the company went straight to the courthouse and the press, and the U.S. Justice Department had no choice but to return the cash. The sheriff had the nerve to claim that his officers were not highway robbers. Dude, if they walk like robbers and rob like robbers, then you guys are robbers. And I should know, I'm Christopher Smith, the publisher of the American Cannabis Report, bringing you the real scoop on off-duty partaking, overeager tax taking, and highway robbery cash taking for Weed Talk News.
Onto the big board for the publicly traded cannabis companies. First quarter reports were announced this week, and who better to keep us informed on it all? It's Green Market Report's Deborah Borchardt.
This is the business update for Weed Talk News from the Green Market Report. One story we've been following for you for months has been resolved. MedMen agreed to surrender its New York assets to Ascend Wellness after a long, nasty court battle. MedMen said it got an extra $15 million for those assets, but Ascend had originally agreed to buy 86% of the company. Now it's buying 99%, so I don't know how much they really squeezed out of that. Earnings season is in full swing. We had so many companies to report. We're just going to hit a couple right here. TrueLeave gave a truly astounding quarter. The company reported it had revenues of $318 million in the first quarter, and they said they're going to be able to do over $1 billion in sales in 2022. We also heard from Curaleaf and Acreage Holdings. Both of those companies saw their sales decline sequentially from the fourth quarter, but they both were able to get started in the New Jersey adult sales this quarter, so expected that those numbers are going to improve dramatically. On the hydroponics side, Urban Go, Hydrofarm, and Agrify all reported their sales this week. Sales were either flat or lower. However, all the hydroponic companies say that their market is going to recover by the end of the year. And finally, on a positive note, Green Thumb Industries showed that it was able to navigate headwinds of falling prices and high costs, and they reported revenue of $243 million in the first quarter. That's your business update. I'm Deborah Borchardt from the Green Market Report.
In Nevada, cannabis consumption lounges in Las Vegas are still scheduled to be open in the fall. However, don't expect to mix weed with alcohol. The Cannabis Control Board in the state set forth recommendations that are expected to be approved in committee in June. Needless to say, concerns about operating under the influence of alcohol remains an issue everywhere, and opening cannabis consumption lounges should only add to the concerns about operating under the influence of both substances. Law enforcement is working with the Cannabis Control Board on shaping the recommendations that include signage and educating servers about recognizing when a person has had too much weed. It seems that polysubstance use is an ongoing issue in Nevada. Here's Danny Baranowski.
So when it comes to mixing alcohol and cannabis, there's really not enough data, not enough understanding. And I do think that, as this is a completely new license type, really a completely new aspect of our industry, everyone wants to make sure it's done carefully and it's done well. And so, having fewer DUIs, making sure that, our industry is moving forward in a positive way and that these things are not being intertwined, I think it's an important aspect to not have those two mixed together.
And it seems like it could be an issue pretty much everywhere. Here's our Florida Cannabis Report with Heather Ullman.
It's time for the weekly Florida Report from We Talk News. I'm Heather Ullman from Cannabis Law Report. As the landscape for cannabis in Florida is changing at warp speed, it's a good time to celebrate a program that started in 2019. The Florida Consortium for Medical Marijuana Clinical Outcomes Research focuses on conducting, sharing, and supporting research on the effects of medical cannabis for health conditions and symptoms. The consortium is housed at the University of Florida and has 9 member Florida universities. Their medical marijuana clinical outcomes research is accomplished through 5 different pillars, and since its inception, the grants program has awarded 30 researchers a total of over $2 million for projects studying the acceptance of cannabis for palliative care, characterizing adverse drug event reports, and cannabis for acute and chronic pain. Specific conditions studied have included Crohn's disease, diabetes, and anxiety, which I think we can all relate to. The consortium also provides free resources, including a quarterly newsletter and an annual report. And coming up on May 19th through 20th, the Cannabis Clinical Outcomes Research Conference will be held in Orlando and is a valuable opportunity to exchange ideas, findings, and potential for future collaborative work. This year's keynote speakers will include Drs. Stacy Gruber, Samir Nehrouz, and Kent Hutchinson. All programs sponsored by the consortium can be viewed online at mmjoutcomes.org. On Tuesday, Curaleaf Holdings reported sequentially flat sales for the Q1 with somewhat narrower cash flows, but sales were 20% higher year over year, and management stuck by its forecast for 20% sales growth in 2022. Why? Maybe because in the past 2 weeks, Curaleaf opened 3 new Florida dispensaries in Pembroke Park, Inglewood, and Tampa Bay, with another announcement this week that a former Orlando bank branch will be converted into a dispensary complete with drive-through. Curaleaf has opened 8 new locations in the state this year alone, bringing their total count to 48 Florida dispensaries. In other news, Planet 13 is quickly building their planned Florida dispensary network with the second location announced in the city of Port Richey, a rapidly prominent suburb in the growing Tampa-St. Petersburg-Clearwater region. Planet 13 says the new Port Richey location is on a busy retail corridor and on the way to popular waterfront destinations as well as downtown. In a statement, co-CEO Larry Scheffler revealed that, quote, "This neighborhood location is the second of our initial 6 dispensaries targeted towards major Florida population centers with underserved local residents. We are rolling out this Florida expansion in line with our budget and timeline," end quote. Planet 13's mission is to build a recognizable global brand known for world-class dispensary operations and innovative cannabis products. In a separate statement, Planet 13 also announced plans to release its financial results for the first quarter on May 16th after the market closes by hosting a conference call at 5:00 p.m. Eastern Time to discuss the first quarter financial results and provide investors with key business highlights. The call will be chaired by co-CEOs Bob Grosbeck and Larry Scheffler, as well as CFO Dennis Logan. That's a wrap for the We Talk News Florida Report. I'm Heather Allman from Cannabis Law Report. Have a nice week.
In New York last weekend, a celebration of cannabis with the annual New York City Cannabis Parade. The event has been ongoing since 1973. However, if you happened to be in New York or New Jersey last weekend, you remember it was a total washout. But there were still some hearty souls on hand, including Senator Chuck Schumer. And just south of the Big Apple in New Jersey, adult sales there are booming. Here's Jill Goldsberry with our New Jersey report.
Hey guys, I'm Jill in sunny New Jersey today with the New Jersey Cannabis Report for We Talk News. And here's what's happening in this week. Here's what's happening this week in New Jersey cannabis. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So the town of Hackensack is considering allowing 2 cultivators to operate in town based on the Hackensack City Council, which is looking to amend a section of the city's zoning code, which will allow operations to begin in the city's cannabis cultivation overlay zone with a Class 1 license from the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. The ordinance will be considered for final passage on Tuesday, May 24th. And the goal here is to support 2 cultivators that the city feels will really bring in a significant amount of tax revenue that will benefit the town and its residents, which makes a lot of sense. In other news, if you're looking to expunge your record or know someone who is, then you'll want to head down to the Community Expungement Clinic happening on Saturday, May 28th at the Wally Choice Community Center in Montclair, New Jersey. From 9:30 to 12:30, you'll have access to free legal services and one-on-one counsel from New Jersey lawyers who really know the business and have been in and around it. And on January 9th, some very exciting news happening for the New Jersey cannabis community. New Jersey Cannabis Insider will host the very first Cannabis Business Awards Gala. How exciting is that? And this will be a night to celebrate individuals and companies that have shaped the industry. It's a black tie affair that'll happen at the Cataract Performing Arts Center. And it'll be unlike anything New Jersey has seen before based on the reports. So I'm excited. I hope you're excited as well. And that is the report this week in New Jersey. I'm Jill in New Jersey for We Talk News. Have a great night.
Overseas in Europe, investment dollars are starting to flow, and a majority of residents are in favor of full legalization. One country that seems to be well ahead of the cannabis curve is Germany. Our European correspondent, Stephen Arthur George, is back with his European report this week.
I'm Stephen Arthur George from SAG Advisory Services in Lisbon, Portugal. This is the European Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Germany inches closer to adult use regulations. Just last week, the health minister announced that they are starting the process. Many insiders are saying that regulations could be in place and published by the end of this year. The finance minister also confirmed that the process has begun. Up in the UK, cannabis prescriptions are seeing some momentum. The Chiron Group reported a 240% increase in sales for quarter 1, 2022, compared to the entire year of 2021. They are said to have one of the best-selling THC flowers in the market, and this is probably helping. With 60 plus million people in the UK, this is a market that everyone should keep their eye on. Down in Portugal, there's been another acquisition. Aconda announced a strategic acquisition of Halogen last week. Halogen has one of the only indoor cultivation and EU GMP facilities in Europe. It's likely we'll see some more acquisitions like this further in the year. That's the European Cannabis Report. I'm Stephen Arthur George from SAG Advisory Services, reporting for Weed Talk News.
The state of Michigan is one of the most robust cannabis markets in the Midwest, but now there might be a legal precedent being set. A real estate company doing business in the cannabis sector has filed for bankruptcy protection. The question for the courts to decide is, how do you protect a company from bankruptcy protection with a federally illegal product? We'll be staying on this story as it unfolds, though with the rest of the cannabis news from that state, here's Michigan NORML Executive Director Rick Thompson.
Hello again. This is the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News. Let's begin. Well, all those 420 parties in April led to a huge 27% increase in sales of regulated cannabis products in April, said New Cannabis Ventures. The single month total, as reported by the CRA, was $195 million, which breaks down as $168 million in adult use and $27 million in medical. Sales in our holiday month crushed all previous sales records. Previous top month in sales was July of 2021 with about $170 million. Medical sales fell 17% last month as compared to March of this year, while adult use sales rose by 38.6% over the same increment. Medical flower and trim accounted for almost 50% of the market in April. In vape carts, 1/4 of the medical market. However, almost 56% of the huge adult use market sales were flower and trim, while carts accounted for only 20% of the market. The CRA reports the average price of a pound of cannabis at historic lows, reaching $21-28. This continues an overall downward price trend, but stands in contrast with March's unexpected spike in per pound pricing. Now, the Consumer Connection program we have with the Cannabis Regulatory Agency has yielded some pretty good results lately. We helped to stop conversion oil from coming to Michigan, pushed for a hearing on labeling for remediated products, and pushed hard for the CRA to publish all of the social equity plans. Now, these plans are corporate pledges of action toward community benefit and are required by law for all adult use cannabis business licensees. Now, the regulatory agency has come up with a program to almost do that. The tiered reward system for social equity within the state's licensed adult use cannabis program. Now, this was created as a result of the suggestions from the Cannabis Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Work Group. The Social Equity All-Star program defines 3 tiers of recognition to licensees who meet the qualifying criteria of the program by publishing social equity plans, corporate spend plans, and community reinvestment plans. The bronze level is just publish your social equity plan. The silver level is publish your social equity plan and your corporate equity spend plan too. and encourage licensees to use diverse suppliers. The gold level is defined by publishing the plans, publishing a spend plan, and publishing the community reinvestment plan. The gold level involves more disclosure about volunteer time and donation percentages going toward racial and ethnic minorities, women, veterans, Native American tribes, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, and returning citizens. Now, this is a voluntary program and not all licensees will choose to participate because corporations like to claim grand deeds without any evidence of accomplishment, but the CRA is willing to encourage companies to participate in the All-Star program by offering various promotions and recognition events throughout the year. Well, it took Detroit about 1 month for their new adult use cannabis business ordinance to be challenged in court, and that's longer than most thought it would take. This is the second time the city's tried to pass ordinance law allowing cannabis businesses. A federal court ruled the previous ordinances were probably unconstitutional by giving preferential treatment in licensing to certain groups of Detroiters. Now, there are 75 businesses already licensed to sell medical cannabis in Detroit. The new ordinance would allow around 100 adult use cannabis retailers in the city, and licensing could begin this summer, but only for new social equity applicants. Those 75 existing medical marijuana retailers would be shut out of the adult use market by 2027, according to the new lawsuit filed by Detroit medical dispensary chain House of Dank. City leaders have very publicly said they want a cannabis industry in Detroit, which looks like the city residents and is made up of city residents. And the vast majority of current medical marijuana dispensary owners do not look or live like Detroiters. The lawsuit only freezes the limited cannabis retail licensing process, though. Because the ordinance has severability, the unlimited licensing of cultivation, testing, transport, and processing operations can continue charging forward. Well, Arts, Beats, and Eats is a huge festival in the Metro Detroit community of Royal Oak, which draws 400,000 people each year. This year, the promoter promised to add a cannabis sales and consumption area, but on Monday, the city council said no. But what it really said was, not yet. It was a narrowly decided question, losing on a vote of 4-3. One council person said maybe next year. Another said it's just not the right time. The police chief's testimony was key to the proposed cannabis area's defeat, as he'd researched cannabis events and authorized by the state, learning none of the previous events allowed alcohol sales, which the arts event does in a very big way, and that all the events held previously were considerably smaller than the 4-day, 400,000 attendees they expected. However, he did say that they'd be monitoring 2 large 420-friendly music festivals happening in northern Michigan this year, which might ease his concerns about sales in large crowds. The Detroit News cites events in Manistee, which just approved Smoke on the Water Fest last month, and the Hoxeyville Music Fest in Wellston. Now, big ups to our state and all the progress being made here. Here's hoping that the Arts, Beats, and Eats will opt into cannabis next year. And if they do, that they change the event's name to Arts, Beats, Eats, and Peace. And that's it for the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson for Weed Talk News.
There are well over 180,000 medical cannabis patients in the state of Missouri, and the movement to introduce adult use is gaining momentum as well. Right in the middle of that movement is Weed Talk News correspondent Brandon Jones. Here's the Missouri Report this week.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones again from Distribution Maven with the Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. And yes, it's exciting. We got 2.5 times the needed signatures to get Legal Mo 22 put on the ballot for November of this year. They are obviously going to go through and check all of the signatures and make sure that they're valid, but we're hoping with 2.5 times what we need that it'll make it on the ballot here in November. A couple key points to Legal Mo 22. It will expunge all criminals that are there for non-cannabis, for non-violent cannabis crimes will be able to be released. Another big thing is you'll be able to grow your own 6 plants and be able to actually sell those at your own will. So you can sell on, just your own personal grow to whoever you would like and not have to worry about any sort of, feedback or any kickback coming back from the police. So that's a couple of big things that are, on the ballot here for November. Another thing I want to talk about is actually how the taxes break down. I don't know how many people have actually gotten a receipt from a dispensary and it actually had the full tax breakdown of where the money is going. I was really excited to see that today. I went to one of my favorite dispensaries here in downtown Kansas City, Field State. They're really big on education. But what I really wanted to point out is where the taxes are going to, and that it actually breaks it down. So, neighboring states like Kansas can pay attention to where this money is going and see how the money can actually help them. So 4% of the actual total goes to the sales tax. 1% goes to the actual street rail in Kansas City. I don't know if you have many people have been able to ride the street rail. It's a pretty cool little thing you can do in Kansas City. You got 4.225 for the actual state sales tax itself. And then a couple other cool things is the Jackson County Zoological District. You get 0.13% to actually help with the zoo project. Kansas City sales. So the city of Kansas City gets a sales tax of 3.25, and Jackson County actually gets a sales tax of 1.25. So you can see there's a lot of people that are getting a little bit of benefit here from all of the money that's bringing in here to help people actually get the medicine they need. So neighboring states, please pay attention. This can help not only the people that need to get the medicine, but actually can help the economy as well too. So please pay attention. Every state should be doing this, breaking down where the actual money goes to. Good ups to Missouri. Thanks again. I'm Brandon Jones from the Missouri Cannabis Report. Have a great week, guys.
As more and more states move toward decriminalization and legalization of cannabis, putting a cap on the percentage of THC in products is becoming a hot topic for debate. Ever since Vermont became the second state to adopt legalization of adult use through a legislative initiative, caps on the intoxicating chemical THC in the cannabis plant have been debated. And with the latest on what is going on in Vermont, here's Jessie Lynn Dolan with the Vermont Report.
I'm Jessie Lynn Dolan from Nurse Grown Organics and Vermont Cannabis Nurses, and this is the Weed Talk News Vermont Report. The Vermont legislature just passed a bill which unfortunately retains a 60% THC cap on solid concentrates. This has been a contentious issue as many Vermonters advocated last year for the current yet unfortunate laws to move forward, with high hopes to improve them in this year's legislative session, while grassroots advocates warned of such egregious concerns. With relentless volunteer advocacy and testimony, Vermont Growers Association and Vermont Coalition for Equity in Cannabis gallantly led this year's efforts and can now only hope that those who supported the unfortunate original cannabis laws will collaboratively and actively advocate next session. The current statutes as written will put newly licensed cannabis producers at an enormous disadvantage against the corporate conglomerate MSOs that make up the medical dispensaries, as well as continuing to encourage the legacy market and legal retailers in neighboring states where those caps don't exist. Zen Barn Farms, one of many who advocated last year for the passing of the current and nonsensical legislation, will be hosting a showcase summer fundraiser on June 11th in Waterbury for Vermont NORML to celebrate prohibition and cap off 5 weeks of fundraising for Vermont NORML's legislative efforts. The town of Wilmington, which originally voted in favor of retail on town meeting day in March, approved it yet again in an unnecessary revote due to a successful petition driven by residents concerned about how retail cannabis sales could affect the downtown culture, children's safety, and impaired driving. Congratulations to Wilmington residents for now twice having voted in favor. That's the Vermont Report for Weed Talk News. I'm Vermont's cannabis nurse, Jessie Lynn Dolan.
Dosing limits in beverages continues to be an issue in Washington state, and the Talking Hedges' Josh Kincaid explains there is no solution in sight in our Washington State Report.
I'm Josh Kincaid from the Talking Hedge with the Washington State Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Looking back on waste reduction for infused beverages, the Cannabis Alliance petitioned the Liquor and Cannabis Board, or LCB, to rule change recommendations that, once adopted, significantly reduced the packaging waste from the cannabis industry. The Cannabis Alliance petitioned the LCB to remove the dosing cap rule from infused beverages back in 2019. And in January that following year, the LCB adopted those changes based on the recommendations. Beverages have been a fast-growing sector in the cannabis industry, and those volume numbers are only increasing, which is why it was imperative to significantly reduce the overwhelming amount of waste generated from our industry, waste that was a direct result of complying with state regulations. The rule change prevented 1.5 million dosing caps from going into the landfill in just the first year alone, and almost 4 million dosing caps from our landfills in the last 12 months. Next week, you guys are gonna find out more about how Washington State reduced plastic poly bag waste by 50%. But with that, we're gonna have to roll up this Washington State cannabis report. I'm Josh Kincaid from the Talking Hedge, reporting for Weed Talk News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.
In Massachusetts, Stephen Hoffman has resigned early from his chairman position of the Cannabis Control Commission. And State Treasurer Deborah Goldberg announced who would be the new chair, and she didn't have to look far. The Deputy Treasurer of the Bay State, Sarah Kim, will take over leadership of the regulatory board for cannabis in the state. And with more on that announcement, here's Ron Marshalsea with the Bay State Cannabis Report.
I'm Ron Marshalsea for Weed Talk News. This is the Massachusetts Cannabis Report. Last week, we found out CCC Chairman Stephen Hoffman had resigned effective April 25th, and while Treasurer Deb Goldberg interviews candidates to take over for the former chair, Deputy Treasurer Sarah Kim will take the reins of the Cannabis Control Commission. Kim was part of the effort to implement the 2016 law that legalized marijuana in Massachusetts as general counsel to the Treasury. There is a new dispensary along Route 9 in Framingham, Uptop. Matt Tabor, who helps operate the brand, is trying to make Uptop stand out, and he was quoted as saying, "We want to be the neighborhood cannabis retailer. We don't want to feel overwhelming when our medical patients walk in. Being medical only, you need to be able to have conversations with customers, be able to consult with them, and explain the benefits." Tabor also talked about how taking their time with customer service is a critical component to Uptop's planned success, citing how other dispensaries have a tendency to focus solely on getting customers in and out as quickly as possible. And finally, KindTap Technologies, a cannabis industry-focused payment solution, will announce a payments partnership with KindRun, a cashless cannabis home delivery platform. KindRun creates a streamlined shopping experience for Massachusetts adult-use consumers. Customers can now pay for their favorite products with KindTap at checkout, enjoying a completely cashless experience. Products are delivered at a scheduled time and only require a photo ID and signature for verification. That's this week's Massachusetts Cannabis Report. For Weed Talk News, I'm Ron Marshalsea.
Bay State Cannabis Report is supported by Holyoke Cannabis, Holyoke's finest cannabis recreational experience.
In the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, the debate continues on how to regulate the laws regarding operating a motor vehicle under the influence of cannabis. Just the classification of the plant continues to be debated as well. Here's our Pennsylvania reporter, Claudia Post, with her unique look at what's hot and not in that state.
I'm Claudia Post from Scarlet Express, and I'm here in the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, reporting for Weed Talk News. So the Pennsylvania Superior Court, has rejected an argument about driving under the influence of marijuana. There was an argument that said it is not a Schedule I controlled substance. Well, I'm reading this article and I'm thinking to myself, well, surely it is a controlled substance. So I didn't understand. Maybe it's a hotshot lawyer that wanted some press, I'm not sure, but a poor man named Franklin Dabney Jr. was found guilty of driving under the influence, careless driving, speeding, and was sentenced to 6 months probation with 10 days on house arrest and handed down a hefty fine. So why does this case matter? The opinion is precedential, meaning that it will have a binding effect on other cases in Pennsylvania, on all future cases. Patients cannot legally drive with any detectable amount of cannabis or its metabolites in their system. But after consuming marijuana, as we all know, it stays in your system for an inordinate amount of time. So how are we going to regulate this? What are the tests going to be? Did we think this through? Well, remember I told you before that I'm in Pennsylvania, so Pennsylvania is Philadelphia and Pittsburgh with Pennsylvania in between. What can I tell you? Anyway, in Pennsylvania, only patients suffering from specific medical conditions can qualify for the state's medical cannabis program. Nearly a year ago, a magazine called Spotlight PA sought information on how many of those patients were approved for each qualifying condition. I guess they were doing some kind of research, as we'll find out, including how often physicians approve patients for the program to treat opioid use disorder. Well, there was a whole brouhaha with the Wolf administration, and they used kind of derogatory terms because they said it was unusual and controversial to endorse cannabis as a treatment for, opioid use disorder. The Wolf administration says this is confidential information. They are not going to release it. But the newsroom, the caveat here was the newsroom was just requesting aggregated data, wasn't asking for specific data. So Spotlight PA and the Department of Health will go before the judges on May 17th and will be live streamed by the Commonwealth Court. I will watch it and I will report back. I'm sure you've heard the news. Recreational marijuana is now legal to buy in New Jersey. But here in Pennsylvania, some folks think they can just hop right over the bridge and buy marijuana and bring it back over here to Pennsylvania. Well, please be told, you're not allowed to bring marijuana over state lines. That's, interstate commerce, and it is illegal to do that. So just as when I was a pup, I used to go across the bridge to New Jersey to buy alcohol and pray that I wasn't caught going over the Ben Franklin Bridge, folks will do the same thing now. They're going to have weed in their pocket. But, every generation has their adventure. We'll see what happens, but stay tuned. Well, that's a wrap from Pennsylvania. I'm Claudia Post from Scarlet Express, and I'll be back next week to talk about what's hot and what's not in Pennsylvania. From We Talk News, have a fabulous week.
The Delaware Senate just passed a bill that would legalize possession of up to 1 ounce of cannabis for adults 21 and older. This following years of advocacy and more recently, neighboring states moving forward with legalization as well. The bill now heads to the governor's desk. And finally tonight, if you live in Thailand, you might want to check your mail. Soon, your county's health department will be distributing 1 million cannabis plants for use medicinally. So that's right. The government is going to share the love of the plant by sending 1 million of those little beauties to its citizens. But before you book tickets to visit relatives or friends in Thailand, keep in mind, this is for citizens of that nation only. If you are caught with cannabis in your possession, you could get 15 years in Thailand's jails. And that would be a real bummer. Well, that's it for We Talk News this week. I'm Elena Pinto, reporting for Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, my name is Tai Chang. I'm the president and founder of Aloha Green Apothecary in Hawaii. We're a vertically integrated medical cannabis company with 3 dispensaries, 1 extraction lab, and 1 cultivation center near the North Shore of Oahu. We have over 150 employees now, and we've been working with Adaptive HR to meet our human resource needs. We're super excited to work with them as we expand, and we've grown at least 2-3 times over the last 2 years. So we look forward to a good relationship with Adaptive, and come visit us in Hawaii anytime. Aloha.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are 2 productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Difference is building a solution for that individual. not just a custom, here's a box, here's a video, here's how you make your VMS. We custom design and custom build every situation for exactly what the customer needs. And we keep the cost low. We have multiple tiers, as far as what you're looking at on the cost side of things. If you want a one-time, where you just pay one initial cost, we have that. If you want to maintain your system and have the highest protection and highest capabilities and highest upgrades at all times, we have different plans for you. But we scale it so it's scalable and affordable 100%.
Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information. Meet Caduceus Science, the alternative wellness company. You know CBD, but how about CBG, CBN? That's right, Caduceus Science produces a range of full-spectrum products, all lab-tested in small batches to maintain the highest quality of products. CaduceusScience.com. Pro Cannabis Media programming is available live and on demand on our Facebook page at Pro Canna Media, on Instagram at Pro Cannabis Media, on LinkedIn also at Pro Cannabis Media, on YouTube and YouTube Live on Pro Cannabis Media, Twitter at Pro Canna Media, and on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So share, and subscribe to all of our content, newsletters, and shows live or on demand.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.